Okay, so I'm going to open the meeting at 7:09. Kevin, can you, actually, you're doing the report,
I'm
correct?
going to do the report, so if someone else could take minutes.
Yeah, I'll do that. So it'll be a little bit slow. Okay, Hannah, while I'm doing this, can you just write down all the people who are here and present, please, and then send it to me afterwards?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, Alvaro, are you letting people in the waiting room?
Yes, I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, good. And tonight I'm also going to ask you, since you're on, which is awesome, thank you. If there's any extraneous noise in the background, if you can mute everybody except the person who's speaking. I'm going to set some ground rules right now for the hearing we're about to open, which is that one person at a time speak. I don't want anybody speaking out of turn. I don't want people speaking on top of each other because it is too difficult for the committee to hear, let alone the public and anybody else who's here. And we had a lot of that last time, and I want that to change, so I'm changing it. And please respect that, and please just wait to be raise your hand and wait to be taken in turn. And with that, without further ado, unless anybody on the committee has anything else to add, let's open this meeting. I'm going to open the hearing. So, Mr. Morris, I'm going to assume you might have a presentation for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, my remarks will be quite brief because I have on screen with me Mr. Ron Bork, the project architect, and Mr. Rick Salvo, the project engineer. And I think due to the nature of the material that is to be presented, largely the speaking parts will be by those two individuals, with Mr. Bork beginning first, since he has the presentation, which involves as much as 30 sheets. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, and we look forward to a productive session.
Thank you. Okay, so who needs to share the screen? And Alvaro, can you handle that for me, please?
I'll give the permissions right now.
Ron Bork, Alvaro,
And what about Rick Salvo, or is he?
the same.
Okay, great.
I'd also like to add that Julian Salvucci is with us. He's our landscape designer, so he'll be discussing his concepts with you.
Great. Excellent.
So, Varro, if we could start with the civil set.
I gave you permission, so yeah.
You want me to bring it up, or you got it, Ron?
Yeah, why don't you bring it up, Rick, and you can discuss it.
One second. Jump straight to the site layout plan here. So I think the largest changes since this was last presented had to do with the emergency vehicle access through the site. And if I switch real quick here, we had prepared at the request of the fire department a emergency vehicle turning movement through the site. Through peer review comment, it was suggested that a slightly larger vehicle be used, which is what you see here on the screen. It's called a bus 40. We had used a single unit 40 at the fire department's request. The peer review requested a slightly larger vehicle on which we show the vehicle path, which now will pass through this area right in here, which will include a reinforced lawn, which is comprised of a series of concrete octagon-shaped pieces that get filled with loam and seed, and then a lawn grows over them. They're maintainable, they're drivable, they're H20 rated. What that path looks like, I zoom in on it over here. So the gray crosshatch that you see in this represents the building that will be sticking up out of the ground. The heavy dash line that you see is the garage level below, that is below ground. And this path right through here is a combination of reinforced lawn, H20 rated patio for a walking path while emergency vehicles are not driving through there, and then regular loam and seed over the deck of the garage. So our regular vehicular access will be through this 24-foot wide drive aisle that will access the perpendicular surface parking spaces, head around this little island, down the ramp to the lower level garage that Ron will be presenting just after this. And of course, the emergency vehicles will be able to travel through that route that I just identified. Those are probably the largest changes. There was a lot of small technical changes that I'd be happy to walk through as part of the peer review comment that involved things like adding the utility poles to the plan, which had already fortunately been surveyed, that we added to the plan. We added the fire hydrant locations, which would be at either end of the project. We added a drain manhole on the overflow pipe, changed the overflow pipe to a reinforced concrete pipe in accordance with the town of Ashland requirements. We'll be repaving this whole section of road here from curb to curb, because when we close this curb cut here, there's a low point that would trap water here. So there we can eliminate that low point, so it'll flow down to the catch basin like it's intended to do, rather than into the site, which is what it does now. And then there was some supplemental calculations that were required for the drainage system, which we have also provided and included. Those are essentially the site changes to the plan. I think, as you can see, by and large, it looks like probably the very similar plan that you saw the last time, but those were the civil changes that were made.
Could I ask a question about the pavers?
Sure.
Did you say that they're plantable, or are they, is it a mixture of hardscape and softscape within the pavers?
So the hardscape area, which is shown by this brick hatch here, will be just that, will be a hardscape. The area in between, if I zoom in here, with these octagon shaped pieces in between the regular loam and seed, will be planted.
And they're planted with what?
Loam and seed, grass.
What kind of grass?
I'm not sure what exact species of grass. I guess I'd defer to the landscape architect for that.
Can I jump in?
Yep.
Yep, sure. So that is actually it's a clove grass and wildflower seed mix provided by Vermont Wildflower Farm. This is a very low growing seed mix that probably won't exceed 6 inches.
It's clover and what?
Clover, grass, and wildflower.
What kind of grass?
I can check and get back to you when I present the landscape design portion of this.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
I'm interested in that in terms of its ability to withstand drought, traffic, et cetera, et cetera.
Is that pattern visible? Is it reinforced, meaning that there is a grid underneath the planting material, or do you see the octagon shape?
So you'll see it when it first goes in. Once the vegetation gets established after a growing season, probably at that point, you won't be able to see it.
So it grows over the.
Grows
paver.
over it, that's correct.
Okay.
That's the same stuff that gets used outside of like assisted livings and nursing homes and things.
Yeah, we've used this on a lot of different projects, quite successfully.
Is it supposed to be grown over, or if it was maintained, over time, you should still be able to see the.
No, it's intended to be grown over, so it's intended to look like a lawn from people that are walking by, yet be able to support a fully loaded fire apparatus when that need arises.
Okay, so I'm asking because there are products that where you still see the grid of concrete pavers and grass in between.
Yeah,
But
the intention will be for it not to be visible.
Okay.
And then what's your plan for holding down the edges against plows? Because that's how I knew that they've used that stuff around nursing homes and assisted livings. It's like a plowed up at one place.
Yeah, I mean, well, this, I mean, I don't think you'd intend the plow to scrape all the way down to the top. The plow would probably be held, a little bit over the top of it. I've never seen an installation where there was an edge installed with it. I suppose we could consider installing a curb or something along that edge, but it kind of defeats the purpose.
Well, I think you have to actually have a heart-to-heart with the contractor who's doing the plowing back there and tell them they have to have shoes, or there's a couple of names for them, but they're relatively cheap. You put them on the plow and they hold it up to keep it so it doesn't pick up stuff like that.
Yeah, and we can also add that into the O&M plan just so it doesn't get lost in the translation. as
Great.
well. Okay, good
So
point.
the pedestrian walking path would be plowed, but Kathy, you're saying the plowing of the landscape area as well. Does the fire department require the full
Oh.
12-foot width to be plowed?
I would imagine so, because it would sort of defeat the purpose if there was a snowbank there and you couldn't drive a fire engine through there.
And all I'm gonna say is, as they come through, Kev, with the snow, depending on how frozen the ground is, sometimes that stuff also gets picked up. So in the case where I saw it, they were plowing the snow off onto what they thought was lawn, which is how they actually caught the, what are you calling this material? I call it
You know,
grass paved.
Yeah, grasscrete is a common name. We refer to it as a reinforced lawn.
Okay. But it's made of plastic or concrete?
Concrete.
So eventually, when we see the materials, I'd love to see a sample of that.
Okay.
Thank you. And what was the size, just since I'm taking the minutes, what was the size of that vehicle that you were talking about?
Oh, it's an Ashto bus -40. So like I said, originally in the comments we received from the fire department, they wanted us to use a single unit 40. Peer reviewer said suggested a bus 40 might be more appropriate. It's a slightly larger vehicle. So we went and ran that vehicle and it worked just fine.
Great. Okay. Any other questions from the committee at this moment, or can we move on to let them finish the presentation?
Oh, yeah, I just had one more question about the drive lane for the fire truck. Is the curb between the parking lot and where the fire truck would enter into that paver system area, would that have a chamfer on it? There's a curb there that would prevent normal vehicular traffic from going in that direction, but it has kind of a 45-degree
Yeah,
chamfer to allow
we'll make sure that this is a piece of granite edging. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, they can come up a 6-inch curb reveal without issue, but why not make it a little easier for them? I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I've seen that before, so I'm just raising the question.
Yeah, we'll specify that piece as granite edging. I think that's a good point.
I don't have anything else, Kathy. We can, you can continue on with the rest of your presentation.
Great, thank you. Gentlemen, floor is yours again.
Ron, I turn the sharing over to you.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Is Alvar still, Alvar, could you share with me the file that I had sent over?
Yes. Do you want me to send it on an email or just share it from my screen?
No, just share from me.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Alvar, I can't see the share.
I just sent it to you. So you can.
There's something up on the screen now.
Yeah, you
Well,
should
that's
have it now, Ron.
But it
That's my
does-
that's my screensaver.
Oh. If that's your screensaver, you're gonna need to stop sharing so he can share it.
Well, yeah, or Ron, if it's on your, if it's on your screen and you have it, why don't you just, you're enabled to share, you could just,
Well, that's what I tried to do, but I got an error message. So there we go. Okay, let me try that again. All right, so share screen. Okay, can
There
you
you
see
go.
that?
Yep.
there we go.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Sorry about that. So this was the based on the discussion we had in our last meeting and addressing some of the or all the issues I think that and concerns that we had. So I will just run through this, and there's also landscape in here which Julian will take over. This is the common information, so I'm just going to pass by this. This was a shadow study, and unfortunately in SketchUp, the boxes you see, because the plants are like two-dimensional plants, you see a box as a shadow, but those indicate shadows of the trees. But more importantly, it gives us a look at the building itself and what the solstices will show for shadows. And the value in this is obviously in the shadow study itself, but also into the discussion about potential solar on the roof. I think that, you know, we can see that the south-facing portions of the building are really solar ready. The benefit to that is that they are not directly visible from the street, so that if you're coming down Homer unfortunately, with solar panels, they don't always fit the roof correctly, and they don't have triangular pieces and things like that. So sometimes it detracts from the building, although you're trying to do the right thing. But in this instance, where we have this southern face, and even the face that's on the south, I guess the north side of the terrace, but the south face of the roof on Homer, gives us some opportunities to have I think, some significant panels there, while maintaining the architectural look that we're trying to achieve on the public side of Homer Avenue. This is a contextual elevation showing the existing conditions along Homer Ave. And the dotted line represents the project site. It's a little out of alignment, but that's the nature of that elevation, trying to piece that together. But it does give you an indication of, the solid building, which is the small retail along the corner of Homer Ave, and then where we step back into the site, and you can see that there's a lot of, I call them, indentations and lack of continuity of that edge, which we're trying to address. This is superimposed with the elevation, showing how we continue to bring we bring the edge back. We create points of interest, shadow and solids and voids. Lower level is commercial space. Upper levels are residential. It meets the massing. If we look at the Alden Street elevation next, we'll see how the volume is consistent with what's on that street. So this is Alden Street, left to right. The right is Homer Ave. Our project site is shown. And then there's a massing of the building, which is, it's a little skewed because of the way that Homer Street works, but or runs, but it does give you an idea of how the massing would fit into the neighborhood. So project data. One of the comments on the peer review was about the turning radiuses in the garage. I did go back and look at them, and they were correct. So I've looked at them and made sure that they all work. The 24-foot radiuses. They do sweep back, which forced our parking to change slightly, but we do maintain the 38 parking spaces.
What size are those?
Those are 9 by 18. With a 24-foot backup.
How many electric stations are you proposing?
We're making all of them EV ready, both on the site and in the building.
But how many are actually? You're making them all EV ready, you said, so you can plug in anywhere?
Well, there'll be the potential to add the stations. So they'll be roughed in to be able to add the stations over time.
Okay, so how many stations?
Well, 38 in the basement and 22 on the ground level.
Okay, how many stations will you actually have to?
Active.
I'm sorry?
I don't know what number that what is required.
Well, I think we're looking for every development to have some plug-in places. And the fact that they're all EV, that it's all EV ready is excellent. Because then you don't have to dig stuff up to put it back in, but I think we'd like to have some. I don't think we have a specific requirement, but I would have to double check on that. But I think
you can certainly have some available on the first floor level, and then some in the basement as well.
And have you anticipated a number for any of those?
No, we have not. We've just made them all roughed in so that that potential is there to add them as they need to be added.
Okay,
If you, there's a number in mind, then we can certainly, identify which spaces would immediately have them.
well, I think the more you have outside in part, for both your commercial and some of your residential parking areas would be helpful. And then, I'm assuming you're building this building because you're expecting to be in Ashland for a while, so you know that we're going to net zero, hopefully by 2040, and this will be a big piece of it.
Is the project pursuing LEED?
No,
Okay.
I-
That could potentially be a baseline to use. You're not pursuing LEED, but LEED has minimum requirements for some of their credits for EV stations, so that could be a basis if there isn't one in the town currently.
so another comment from the peer review was on trash storage and removal and bike storage. So I'm gonna go back to the basement. So we do have trash and recyclables room, of which the building owner will twice a week have a smaller vehicle come in, pick up trash and take it off site. For bicycle storage, I have one location at the in the lower level, as well as a location just outside of the lobby and the front entrance, as well as that back entrance where the handicap spaces. There's also, sorry about that. There's,
Can you go back and show where each of those are?
sure. So in the upper right corner,
Mm.
there'll be a like a wire cage with controlled access
Inside or outside?
inside.
Okay,
And then there will be lock storage on the first level, directly outside of the residential lobby, the residential entrance, and the hatched area for the handicap access. There's also a bike rack just outside of the residential entrance.
I have a question about the EV setup charging stations.
who's that? That's
George
speaking?
Arkis?
Okay, George, I'm gonna ask you to wait until we go through the presentation, or at least we get through what the committee has to ask about that particular
Sure.
with the bikes.
No problem.
Thank you. Okay, what about if one of your commercial spaces has, let's say they sell ice cream, so that would get a lot of people biking down perhaps to use, do you have bike racks outside somewhere?
I have bike racks by the little pocket park on Alden Street, the entrance to the residence. But we can certainly, there's a lot of paving in front of these entry doors, so they can certainly be placed there. It wouldn't be disrupting landscaping or anything. So I think depending on what the tenant mix is, there's a flexibility to accommodate either benches or bike racks.
Yeah, there's actually bike rack benches. Did you know that?
No.
Yes,
Really?
they're kind of cool, actually.
Okay. So on level 2, one of the comments was to shift the building northward, this front section, to enlarge the space at the at sort of the pinch points of the terrace. The number 4 foot was used. What I had to do, because these roof lines were all worked out and it was very difficult to get the full 4 feet, I shifted it 2 feet in this direction, and then back here I shifted it down 2 feet. So I have the 4 feet, I just didn't have it all in the front. I was also concerned about exceeding square footage for parking for the commercial space balance, but it does accomplish the same goal. I have also, in designing the units, paid attention to creating situations where you weren't looking directly across into a bedroom on a short axis, as well as Julian talks about his planting scheme. We've kind of denied the space closer to the bedrooms along here with raised planters and plantings. So people will not be able to be directly above or directly, in front of a bedroom window within close proximity.
How high are the planters?
They're 18 inches.
Okay,
Level 3, again, the units are, at least design development laid out, show that they all work and that they meet some square footage requirements. And on the roof plan, as we discussed, so if we looked at the southerly part of the sheet, we can see that we have some opportunity for solar. We'll have some opportunity for solar on the north side of the level 2 terrace roof, as well as where the flat roof slopes down on either side. On the left side, we have smaller dormers, so it'll be a little more difficult to have anything that's really consequential. But it really does help. It helps a project. It helps the resiliency and things like that, but also not having it directly on Homer, that's not the most efficient location for them, I think helps the project as well, because it does solve that problem that we always see with solar panels of them sticking 6 inches off the roof and being square boxes on triangular, roofs.
so you're proposing putting them on the flat roof sections, the 500 and 740, 750?
Well, I think as we develop the condensing units, we can work with that and have panels on there as well. We have space. Maybe we gang them all in one location or else shift them so we can get additional panels there, but also on the sloped roofs along the pathway, the emergency vehicle pathway.
Ron, before we leave the plans, I have some questions about level 1, if you could go back to that. So my understanding was that we were going to see a plan that showed more commercial space on Alden Street, and I thought Unit 2 was coming out. Could you just remind me and just tell us what transpired about that corner? Because I was expecting Unit 2 wouldn't be there, I think.
Well, we had discussed sort of reconfiguring it. I don't think we discussed enlarging it. I do have a stair here, which serves from the garage to the 3rd floor, which takes up this corner. Everything else beyond that is for commercial.
Where's the entrance for commercial on Alden Street?
Right here
In the corner?
in my corner. Let me zoom in. So it's off the corner. Off Alden Street.
So is this, I'm going to mark this up. Is this the space that we were talking about last time, that the plan would be revised to show the additional commercial tenant space at Alden Street? That's this space here.
There were originally three units along that pathway. One of them was eliminated and the other 2 were reconfigured. That's how I read it. Is that correct, Ron?
That's correct, right? So I'm looking at the previous first floor. So the commercial went to the corner and the stair was essentially where the commercial entrance is. And then we had units 1 and 2. So unit 2 extended basically to the corner of the trash room. So that was pulled back. That space was given to the commercial space, which was noted here as 800 square feet. I'm not sure what the square footage is, but I think it was a comparable size. And the stair was shifted to the corner. So the commercial space was shifted more towards Homer Ave where this door is located.
But what was, so now I found the plan that was provided previously where the stair was shifted
Right.
sort of in this location. So what was the reason for moving the stair?
Well, there's only, if you go to the basement floor plan, there's only so many locations that the stair on that end of the building can be placed. The building notch is in here. The stair was located approximately in this location where space 28 is. And it created a situation where traffic coming down the ramp was running, directly into the stair, which I didn't think it would be a good idea to have pedestrian traffic walking through there. And then find a common area through the first, second, and third floors.
I see. Okay, so it was a result of continued planning efforts.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
Okay, so my other question was, is this the second floor? So we had talked last time about shifting this bar plan north, and you said that you moved the south wall, the south red line, but did the whole bar move to modify the depth of the recesses at Homer?
It did, but it only moved 2 feet, I believe. The impact on the roofs left it very difficult to resolve the ridge lines. So I was able to move it 2 feet, and then what I did was on the where unit 12 is, the wall south of the I guess I could use the same thing you're using. Sorry. The wall that's on the wall of unit 12 was shifted back as well. To give myself the 4 feet that we were asking for, I couldn't get it all on Homer Ave.
So when you did your shadow study, did that move more of that patio into the light? The plantings?
I didn't do the shadow study with the older version. I did it with the not in the same fashion. I did on the renderings it showed it, but I did not go through this particular process.
Where does it show it on the, can you blow it up so we can see those more clearly? Because they're pretty small in that. Yeah, I want to see what it shows in the growing.
So this area, December 21st, noon. Shows a small shadow.
Okay,
March, slightly larger. September.
and those shadows on that are from what? In
The
September.
shadow you see here, the peak is this ridge to the south of the shadow, and then the hash, the little rectangles you see are actually those plantings that I have in the model, but they read as squares when they do shadows. They don't read as a silhouette of the plant.
Okay. So what time of day is this one?
They were all done at noon.
So the one in December has less shadow?
That's what I'm wondering if I may have reversed one on, when Julian's talking about the landscaping, I'm gonna go
You'll
off
double
screen.
check those? Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
great, because that was one of my concerns about that was what's in the planters. A lot of that looks like material that needs more sun than it might get up there if it's in shade during the growing season.
Yeah, so as Julian's speaking about his landscape, I'll open the SketchUp model and just make sure that I didn't reverse these by mistake.
Okay, great, thanks.
Does that answer your question on the commercial space?
It
The other,
does, yeah.
the other, challenge is to kind of maintain the square footages and the parking count balance. If I added 1,000 square feet, I would have not had enough parking spaces on site to cover it. So that's
Mhm.
sort of that back and forth that we're constantly struggling with.
Yeah, I was just making sure we're looking at the most current iteration of the plan, and it sounds like we are, so I am happy about that. And I'm looking at the previous iteration of the level 2 layout. After shifting the bar closer to Homer Ave, it does seem more generous. Can you go back to level 2? I think previously there were more undulation to this facade inside this courtyard, and so I wish that it was larger, but I think it's more generous than what you had previously. So I'm not going to comment on that further right now.
I also think that positioning the bedrooms where there is a significant planting bed in front of it helps to deny people that space, so you do have that sense of privacy.
Right, that's great, appreciate that.
Yeah, so it looks like the overall layout of that courtyard space is new. I mean, you completely reconfigured it, right?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we look at the plantings, the raised planters, the comments that were made, and Julian went back to the drawing board and came up with an alternate that he'll discuss, and hopefully is something that appeals. So there's a request to do the straight on elevations, which we had done, it just weren't part of that package.
You haven't sent these in to us yet? So you just,
Yeah, this was part of the original the package I sent.
okay, good, that's what I thought.
Now this one, Elvar, the package that I sent you this afternoon, because I did do a series of swatches on the side here for materials, colors, potential trim colors, complementary colors for the trim and the siding. And
Yes, I did share it, Ron. At the moment that I received it, I shared it today.
Okay, but that's not this file.
No, that's the file that you sent me today.
This afternoon, okay.
Yeah.
So I will follow up, but there are color swatches here representing the trim, the field, and complementary colors if we were to go with this type of scheme, for example.
So what applicant shared isn't what we're looking at right now?
No, this afternoon I had added boxes here that just show a different Benjamin Moore colors for color board.
All right, so when are you gonna send what we're looking at right now?
I'll when Julian jumps on with the landscape, I'll resend that sheet.
Okay, great.
Actually, Kathy, you should have it. I sent it today at around like 4.
Oh, that is the one I saw.
Yeah,
Okay,
3:46. Yeah.
Right,
excellent.
because I did add some green roof details, just some standard details, and I added these color swatches.
Okay, thank you,
File.
everybody, for sending it on.
So we had looked at different styles for the elevation, and they all have the same sort of principal premise is to have just several materials in a module and have order to them. So in this instance, this was the one we had seen before with the decorative brackets, the composite trims, sort of the dental, the large glass windows at the at the commercial space. And we'd have obviously low E glazing, and brick veneer on the first 2 levels of the insets, and then a clapboard style siding above. And then looked at that same elevation, if we were to use a shingle in the upper level, create a datum line, and then maintain the clapboard on the lower level with a fixed awning. Another style where if we went with a board and batten, similar to the sort of the farmhouse look that you see, mixed with a clapboard siding on the lower level. You know, this could be a darker clapboard with a white farmhouse look. Personally, to me, that's a style that doesn't belong on this, but it is a style that does belong with the kind of the massing. And then this is a combination of a little more modern material, have metal panel on the recesses, flat signage without an awning, denoting the residential entrance. And then on all of these, we show building signage in those panels. So that gives us some different looks to the same elevation, but they all have the same principle of having, you know, each block is organized. It's not overwhelmed with 5 or 6 different materials, and it has an order to it. So I'm going to let Julian take the screen and discuss his planting plan.
All right, hold on a second, Ron. Kevin or Hannah or Bill, do you have any questions about what we've just looked at? Any comments?
Yeah, I think we should pause and talk about the architectural materials.
So
So-
can you start back at number, do you want him to start back at number 2?
So there were 5 total.
Well, the first one I saw was 2 with the brick in it, elevation
Yeah,
materials.
so one is the elevation that's on the model.
I just want to make a note, Ron. I think that you're showing the not updated version of just the last file that you sent to me today.
No, I understand that. That's what I was.
Okay.
I know it's not the updated version, but the only changes were the materials that I showed on the left,
Okay,
and there's a
gotcha.
couple details. So I'm going to go back to that, and then we can revisit this. So if we can revisit this after Julian's, if that can move us along, and I can get the correct file up.
Sure, excellent, thanks.
So Julian, can you pick it up from here?
Yes, I can. If you could just move the mouse for me, Ron, and just indicate the areas that I'm speaking about, that would be wonderful. But I'm going to start from the front, then move to the left side, to the rear parking area, and then the right-hand side. But just to preface, so while designing this project, low maintenance, drought tolerance, native plant selection, and mature plant height, as well as solar conditions, were taken into consideration for this. And all trees, shrubs, and perennials are being shown at their mature sizes. So we're going to start in the front, and along the front of 9 to 49 Homer Ave, and in front of the large floor-to-ceiling windows, we have a layered mix of perennials and shrubs. So from front to back, we have plants like Carex albicans, Geranium maculatum, Chasmanthium latifolium, and then Hydrangea quercifolia ruby slipper. They are the largest shrubs along the fronts, and they reach a height of 3 to 4 feet tall and are being used to soften the architecture of this development. And they're located in places that won't obstruct the large floor-to-ceiling windows. So we saw a solar analysis from Ron earlier indicating that the front of this property along Homer Ave is going to be pretty shady. It's north facing, so that's expected for that area. So all these plants are able to withstand some levels of shade, definitely. Also, at maturity, once they're established, they're going to be drought tolerant as well and require little maintenance. For the front plantings, I'd estimate, you need a simple garden opening and closing, and then limited maintenance during the season just to keep things looking tidy. But this isn't any kind of like super high maintenance perennial garden. We're going to move on to the left-hand side now. So this is going to indicate, so this is the entrance from Homer Avenue. We see two types of grasses along the entrance, Panicum virginiatum, Shenandoah, and more Chasmanthium latifolium, northern sea oats. Further back, we have an upright variety of white pine, Pinus strobus fastigiata, more Panicum virginiatum Shenandoah, and then Arctostaphylos uva urseri as a ground cover.
Where is that?
The Arctos, well, where
The last grouping you're talking about, is that this little triangular thing here?
Yes, the Arctostaphylos uva urseri are the dark green rev clouds in between the Pinus strobus fastigiata.
So right in these areas.
Yes, thank you, Ron.
So the green circles, I can barely see this on my screen right now.
Could you zoom in for us a little bit, Ron?
Sure.
Thank you. Is that better?
Yeah.
Kathy?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Of course, yep. So that's along the left-hand side as you enter into the rear parking area.
The Arctostaphylos,
Yes,
where's south for that?
where's south for what? In general?
Well,
this
yeah,
plan?
because I think that's not going to get enough light.
South is, what's it called? North is along Homer Ave, and the bottom area over here is southern facing along the parking.
Right, but don't you guys have a fence along the edge of the
Yes.
property line there?
There's a 6-foot tall white fence along the edge of the property line.
And what's behind the Arctostaphylos?
Behind those are
What-
the pinkish red circles. That is Panicum virginianum Shenandoah. What's it called? They get to a mature height of about
Yeah,
4 feet tall.
so you might have to have a plan B if it turns out to be too shady for that stuff. Because it will tolerate some shade, because I have it on a site where stuff is grown in and matured
Mhm.
to a faster degree than I thought it would, but in some places it's starting to die back because it's in too much shade now.
Yeah,
and
I
the
agree
juniper-
with that.
The juniper is actually doing better, even though it's sort of ubiquitous and gets overused in a site where it's going to get more shade. I mean, if this was on the facing side, on the opposite side of the building there, where it was going to, have almost no obstruction between it and the light, I'd say go ahead, because I've seen it growing on the dunes in Cape Cod, and it's gorgeous.
Mhm. Yeah, with that full sun exposure, definitely.
So that's my comment over in here.
Understood. I'm writing that down right
And is
now.
that the same thing you've got down here in this little corner?
Yes, in between spaces 13 and 14, correct.
And the fence is where there?
The fence is shown by it's a dash and an X. Ron is outlining it right now for us.
That your property line goes like that?
Yeah.
That is, okay, that's very interesting. Okay, yeah, I think, I don't know, I think you ought to take a good look at those, the solar values over there. Just, and I don't know how many plants you'd plan to put in there. I mean, maybe you could do them right next to the curbs on the outside and put juniper in the back or something. But I'm fairly certain some of that will not last. And then you get weeds in there.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, no, I'll think of a backup for the Arctostaphylos in those locations. May I continue along the rear parking?
Yes, please.
Of course. So along the rear parking, it consists of a 6-foot wide planting bed that separates the parking spaces from the white fence we were just talking about. Inside this planting bed is going to be a mass planting of Clethra alnifolia, specifically ruby spice, a deliciously fragrant variety of Clethra alnifolia. And then over time, these things will reach 6 feet wide by 6 feet tall, and they'll form a thicket. So they're going to grow together eventually, sort of screening out the fence and offering fragrance and beautiful flowers during the season. And then I have a note about the Arctostaphylos urseri in between spaces 13 and 14. But like we talked about, Kathy, I will look into alternatives for that. There are some existing mature trees in this area. I believe it's in front of space number 10 and 14. There are existing elm trees and oak trees, so we're just leaving space for that. And I'm not planting anything too close to them.
All right, so this should show those trees.
It does.
Oh, I see. Got it.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, we have a little bump out in front of spot number 10 just to encompass that.
accommodate it.
Yeah, just to accommodate it.
Okay, great. And I'm just gonna go back to the engineer and the architect. The roots of those trees, gentlemen, have to be protected.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So I'm going to move over to the right-hand
So-
side. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, so what's the plan for protecting them? Because I can
I
send you some documentation if you want on the
Yeah.
critical root zones.
Mhm.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Okay,
Are you talking during construction on the off chance that a fire engine has to drive through there?
who's speaking, please?
It's Rick Salvo, sorry.
Hi, Rick, sorry, okay. I'm talking about the actual existing trees.
Oh,
oak-
okay, during construction.
Yeah, and you know, what the plan is for protecting, because if you're gonna cut off most of those roots, then, you know, I think it'd be nice to keep those trees, and they're shown as part of this, and keeping them only enhances what you're doing here.
Sure.
So, you know, it'd be worthwhile to protect them.
Well, there's really no reason to excavate in that area, other than for the driveway, for the driveway. So there's no construction going over there as far as building goes.
Right, but it's the actual driveway, the installation of that driveway, because how far down do you go?
Generally about a foot.
Yeah, okay, so,
I mean, there will be
Yeah,
some brick on the subsurface drainage, but I don't think it's close to that tree.
No, I mean, I'm looking at Google Earth right now. There's already there's already a paved parking lot right next to it. So,
from this site,
yes.
okay.
So, you know, so that we really
Depends on how-
shouldn't be adding a new pavement section there. We should just be pulverizing the pavement that's there and repaving over it. So I don't see there to be a ton of impact. If it was lawn, I hear you. We'd be putting in, you know, a big pavement section, but the pavement section's already there.
Okay, I remember walking through there a while ago with Ron and Terry, and I don't actually remember the condition of it because there was a lot of piles out there at the time. So if the paving is really cracked, then the possibility, there's a distinct possibility that the roots of those trees have extended into that area. So I'm gonna send over the critical root zone stuff, and I just would appreciate it if you all would pay attention to it when you're doing your construction, because I think that's gonna be, those trees are gonna be important moving forward.
Okay, yeah, we can add some detail to the erosion control plan to make sure there's some orange construction fence put around there, and that sort of thing to protect that root zone
You're gonna put it where?
on the erosion control plan. So when the erosion control goes in, the orange construction fence would go in before any work is done. So it'll be protected.
Thank you. Like that.
That's awesome. And just to keep in mind when dealing with trees too, you know, those roots are going to grow horizontally. And most of the roots of a tree are going to be in the top 4 to 15 inches of the soil too. So even if you are just simply excavating existing asphalt, you're going to, you know, disturb the roots to some extent. So some sort of protection should definitely be looked at and incorporated. But I'm going to continue
So-
along the right.
What I'm gonna do is I'll send the stuff over to Alvaro, and he can forward it to you. To you all to
Right.
take a look at. It's stuff that we've got under consideration right now to put into the design review guidelines in town at the very least. But it's really, you know, if you're gonna have them, it's worthwhile keeping them. And I brought this up before when you all proposed projects.
Thank you for sending that over. So I'm going to continue along the right-hand side of this development. So we're going to be by the Alden Street entrance to that park that Ron was talking about earlier. Right at the entrance, we have a beautiful eastern redbud, Cercis canadensis. And then along the southern side of this area, along the fence, we have a row of trees. They are sugar maples. The specific variety is Acer saturum reba, which is just an upright variety of sugar maple. I believe at maturity, the crown of the tree is going to be about 18 feet wide. So the goal here was to have a tree with a substantial canopy that's going to provide screening for the neighbors, while also not impeding on this access road for when a fire truck potentially needs to get back there. And I think this.
Are those a normal tree or are they more fastigiate?
They are a loose fastigiate, I would categorize them at. They're not extremely upright like a slender silhouette Liquidambar starassiflua, but they are, like I said, the canopy gets to be about 18 feet wide. So they are upright, but they're not super tight. And then we also have shown in a green crosshatch is a seedling mix that I mentioned earlier. It's a clover, grass, and wildflower seed mix. I just double checked the specs online a couple of minutes ago, and the mature height of this stuff gets to be about 10 inches tall. And Kathy, I believe you wanted to hear about the types of grasses that were included in this seed mix. We have two in particular. One is Festutia ovina, which is a sheep fescue, and the other one is, Festutia ovina jetty, which is a hard fescue perennial grass. Both are considered drought tolerant, and we have other things in there like Dutch white clovers, Johnny jump ups, sweet alyssums, and other perennials. But like I said, this is going to get about 10 inches tall at maturity. That access path, there's no seed in that access path. So, this could be mowed less frequently than grass, and it's going to require less water than grass too in the long run.
What's the actual name of the mix?
The mix is the actual name is Magic Carpet Clover, Grass, and Wildflower Seed Mix, and it's sold by the Vermont Wildflower Farm. And a lot of the specs are listed online too on their website.
Great.
Including detailed info like the specific varieties that are included in the seed mix, and as well as other information.
Okay, great.
But that is all I have for this planting plan right here. I'd love to hear any questions you guys have. I noted the question you had, Kathy, about the suggestion to potentially replace the Arctostaphylos uva ursae with another more shade tolerant ground cover. I'll look into that.
Yeah, or you could keep it towards the outside and
Okay.
put that, where it'll get more sun, but where it's close to the fence, I think my experience says it's gonna not have a good time back there.
Mm.
And then I want to take a look. I want to see the front of the building, that part blown up more, please.
Sure thing. Thank you, Ron.
Can you slide the screen so more of that is more, yeah, that's exactly right. So the facade is more visible. Thank you. So if your commercial tenants wanted to sit outside, they, if they had benches and stuff. So are there plans for site furniture out here?
I'm not showing any site furniture out here. We just have patio space in front of certain commercial areas.
Right, there's certainly there's room for it, and it really comes down to what kind of tenants end up renting a space.
So you wouldn't provide it as sort of a matter of course, the tenants would be responsible for it?
Well, that would be up to the owner, but as far as providing the space itself, I mean, there's sufficient space out here to do, for example, tables for a deli. Here it could be benches, could be small tables. So, we did allocate that space on the outside to try to tie the two together. Wanted to create an edge where, people could sit out there and enjoy Homer Ave without being directly on Homer Ave. Was kind of one of the goals.
Yes, absolutely. So is any of this stuff evergreen?
No, that's the thing. These are not evergreen plantings. I'd say with the exception of yews and hemlocks, most evergreen plantings require good amounts of sunlight throughout the growing season to really thrive and produce. So when I was putting this planting plan together, being the north side of this development, I steered away from them just because of that fact, because that there's going to be limited sunlight in that area. But we do have grass. So Carex albicans is going to flower, produce seed pods, and that would be some sort of winter interest if they're left up throughout the winter. And then you also have stuff like the northern sea oats against the windows too. If those are not cut down in the fall and left up, you actually have some pretty attractive, grass foliage in front of the windows. Same thing with the hydrangea quercifolia ruby slippers. While not evergreen, they do have interesting exfoliating bark.
Okay, I just look at this and I know that you got, Ron, that you got a lot of feedback at the last meeting about, I actually liked the landscaping. What we needed to do was sort of organize the facade a little bit. I actually liked the planting selection somewhat better from the last time because there were more flowers. So one of the things that I think is going to be part of the draw to get people down here is color and having it look really interesting. And this is great, but I'd like to see more color during the season out here, and I'm really concerned about it in the winter. And how could you what could you do out here to make it look a little greener in the winter? And then Brendan, our associate member who's traveling today, texted me at the outset of the meeting and said he was wondering about trees out here. And I know there are telephone poles and wiring overhead that looks really beautiful in front of the facade of your building, but I'm wondering if there's a way to get some kind of trees in here to help break up the facade some more. And it's sort of a question to throw out to Ron and you, Julian. Because I just look at that front of that facade that Ron had up earlier, and I'm like, we can see the building, but it's not, the landscaping would help soften it. Because this is a big building for this area, and it's a big mass, which I'm very concerned about actually. Because when you go stand over on Front Street and you're attending the farmers market, it is going to look totally different when people stand in there and look back over. And if, some year in the future, we sink the railroad line down below, then this is really going to stick up as something very large and very massive looking across from Main Street and Front Street.
I'm sorry. I agree with you, Kathy, on the earlier plan. I thought Julian did an excellent job on. I just felt the comments were just like it was too much. I mean, that's what I heard.
Well, that's what I heard. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. That's what I heard too. And I'm sorry that we didn't get a chance to discuss it more.
Okay.
So
we can certainly put some of the smaller, like the trees, Julian, that you had before. I mean, I thought you did an excellent job on that. And it really started to have the landscape talk to the facade. That was sort of the way I presented it.
what do you have the old one?
I do, but I think I'd have to get out of the Zoom to get it. So that's why I was hoping.
So Julian, do you remember what you had out there for trees? I was looking for it and I couldn't find it right away, so I gave up.
Yeah, I'm clicking around right now trying to find it as well. But what I remember is I had some sort of upright variety of trees along the front of Homer Ave. They might have been slender silhouettes, American sweet gum trees. I believe I had those placed on the corners of this development just to soften these corners up. And just because these planting beds aren't that deep, there's really a limited number of trees that would fit in this area without getting overgrown at maturity. Another suitable tree that I think could be acceptable up here would be some more eastern redbuds, just because they are shade tolerant, and they're not going to get oversized. I think they get 25 feet in diameter at maturity. But any trees that are planted along Homer Avenue would need to be ushered on and curated on by a knowledgeable arborist, somebody who's going to prune them away from the building when they eventually do get to a mature size.
Yeah, I would agree with the knowledgeable arborist, because I just saw a building where the pruning job that was done to get pines off of the building was bar none horrible.
Probably used hedge trimmers or something. Yeah.
Yeah, they used hedge trimmers, honestly. It was terrible. But eastern redbuds out here would be gorgeous.
Agreed. I think that pop of color in the early spring would be wonderful.
Well, and I like the leaves and the shape of them. It's a nice, a nice plant. And then, you might have to shift a little bit your planting scheme below to accommodate the shade, but maybe not. I know the Chasmanthium is going to take it. This Carex, I actually use Pennsylvanica all the time because in a warmer environment, it might actually stay greener. Or part of it will stay greener.
Excuse me, would a redbud be affected by salt?
It's actually fairly tolerant. It can tolerate some of it. I mean, it doesn't like the seashore, but there's a place up along 126, almost at 117, where they're closer to the road than I thought they ought to be.
Okay, so road salt wouldn't affect them that much.
Yeah, they'll be dormant. And Julian, what do you think? I mean, you could also, that area could get limed in the spring, or I'm forgetting the other stuff you can put on, gypsum.
Oh my God, yeah, gypsum or something. Yeah, no, that's a really good point about the salt tolerance, because being along Homer Ave right there, and the sidewalk too, that's going to be salted all winter, so that's definitely a concern.
That's a street sidewalk and not.
Correct.
That's the town sidewalk, not yours, correct?
Right.
I believe so. Is that correct, Ron?
Correct, yep.
And you all don't have to redo it because they're doing it, is that correct?
I believe so, Rick, right? The scope of the road work will include the sidewalks by the city contractor.
Okay, well, we'll just have to see. So whatever you can do out there to make it a little more, I think anything else you can do to have a little more of a colorful draw down the street would be helpful. And I do understand what Brendan was saying at the last meeting.
Is there
We're
other
still-
communities that might have a tighter canopy? I'm not a landscape architect, so I don't know, but what native species might have a tight, smaller canopy?
I mean, hornbeams, there's a fastigiate variety of those, but even that, they get pretty wide, and in my opinion, they would outgrow the space at maturity. For native upright plants, upright trees, the selection isn't that big for this area.
It isn't actually. Whereas you at least get the flowering of the cercis first thing in the spring,
Exactly. Yeah.
which would be really nice. I know that Brendan was looking for a more fastigiate thing on the corner, and then you could go to a non-native plant out there, but I'd be looking for it to be flowering at some point.
Right. Yeah. No, sticking to native species too is important. So that really limited the plant selection for this.
Right. So when this is getting put in, your plan is to do some sort of irrigation till it's established, right?
Yeah, so this is going to need irrigation for at least the first 2 seasons until everything here is established. But after that, it can be toned down, as most of these plants are drought tolerant.
Yeah, I actually think you should plan on 3. You might get lucky and have a year like this year where nobody has to water, where, last year everybody had to water.
Yeah,
Because we just don't know what's happening, because the hotter out it gets, the more, I mean, I look at Homer Ave and Alden Street, and all that hot pavement is gonna make these plants suffer more. The July we just had was insufferable, basically, and it's hard on all these plants.
right. I definitely think the carex along the sidewalk that will be pretty tolerant of, heat and sunlight against the sidewalk.
Yeah, and I think the oats grass will do the same.
Agreed.
Kathy, can I make some comments on the patio spaces
Absolutely, please do.
since we're in that area? Ron, could you just zoom in on that northern section of this? So I'm just wondering about the attitude that you're taking towards each of these patio areas. So I appreciate the fact from last time, all of the commercial entrances are now in the middle of each of these recessed bays. And I'm just wondering if it is going to be difficult to maintain the plantings on this north facade that will be in shade, do we reduce the amount of planting here and develop an attitude towards these patio spaces at the same time? I'm kind of thinking leave this one the way it is, but then extend all these patios out to the face of the sidewalk, just so that we're giving the tenant spaces, the same opportunity to fit out these patios with site furniture and cafe tables or whatever it might be, to make it more usable and inviting to the public. And it sets up a rhythm. The site landscaping has an attitude just like the building does.
No, I think that's another way to look at it. I did, when we get to the renderings and look at the paving patterns, I did carry some of the paving pattern. I think you had mentioned it across the drive lane from the Pocket Park, and then I also carried it into these spaces, which I thought was a good move. But yeah, the shapes and I guess it's what you're trying to accomplish. Is it that you want the building to be welcome and have its own identity, so people kind of walk through this path into one retail space and you've got a separate one? They share the patio in front, but they have separate entrances in, versus one that may be set up for a deli that has tables outside, but still has a little separation from the sidewalk and the street. Because to me, that's important. I mean, I know we always reference that building, the donut shop or deli, and it's just, to me, it's uncomfortable to sit on the sidewalk and have a car in the street right there without any type of visual or psychological buffer. It's just,
One thing to add to that, though, you could utilize some sort of like deep raised planters along the sidewalk too, to kind of still give you that buffer. And then inside those planters, you could have maybe some sort of evergreen shrub like a yew or a boxwood, just to give you that winter interest we were talking about earlier. But I agree, it is nice to have the screenage to separate the patio space from the sidewalk and Homer Ave.
So, wait, I'm gonna interject here just because this just brought up something that's very much on my mind now. What, is there any curbing out there to stop a car from literally running off Homer Avenue into these spaces, God forbid, but there's enough people driving like crazy people these days, and they drive into houses and buildings a lot now. So I'm a little curious about that, because these spaces will be really nice until somebody drives into them and the same is gonna be true for another couple of other developments that are happening.
There's a 6-inch reveal granite curb all the way along the frontage of this property.
Which is where, on the edge of the sidewalk or the edge
Correct.
of your property also?
Edge of the sidewalk.
Yeah, okay,
We also have the telephone poles, which will provide protection.
that's
Okay.
true. The beautiful,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think if someone was to drive off the road and go through it, I mean, that kind of goes to the maintenance plan. You know, this is the front door of this building. Obviously, that landscape is going to get,
oh, it's gonna get trashed. But it's more to like protect the people inside if there's, people sitting out on a patio. Because I'm just thinking about it. So if you were gonna do raised planters, where would you put them? Out here?
I think you were looking, in areas where if we open this up, as Kevin mentioned, and we had a raised planter, it serves as a barrier, but also gives a planting bed. But if you're gonna do that, you might as well leave what we have here.
Well, that
we
was
could-
what I was thinking, or at least leave the trees, change some of those hydrangeas into trees. And then have, it would be shaded seating underneath the tree, which would be,
Mm.
would be really nice. What's in that where it says hydrangea and what's to the left of it, the left and right of it? Is that the geranium?
Yes, that is the geranium.
Yeah. I mean, you could put the carex or juniper or something. You could probably get away with juniper out there because that's also far enough away from the facade of the building.
Is there a native juniper you typically use?
Yeah, I'd have to look up the name. I've got one that I've successfully used in containers a lot. I'll make a note to send that along with the,
Like I was gonna say juniperus
either
horizontalis.
horizontalis
But
or,
that gets huge though, right?
well, there's one that gets really nice because it dribbles over the containers and
Yeah.
it looks beautiful. And then, somebody would just have to come along every so often, eventually when it hits the ground and clip it back up. But it's actually really nice. And that actually helps protect whatever's in those planters because it's an added buffer against the heat and cold of the street. Junipers are tough as nails and they tolerate salt. I just have to go back and look at a couple of my client notes to tell you what it is, because I honestly don't remember right now.
Yeah,
Right.
if you could send it over, that'd be awesome. I'd appreciate that.
It might take me a few days. I might have to go up to the wholesaler and go around in the back there, and they literally were plants that were selling for use in Christmas containers, and then you could plant them up, and they're nice and small. So I would buy a whole bunch and then plant them up in, places where I didn't want to be doing a lot of digging, but I needed coverage eventually.
So if we're concerned about the canopy of a tree interfering with the architecture, I think I'm combining some ideas here by saying this, but if the tree was out here towards the sidewalk and was in an urban plaza grill, it's not within the landscape, but is embedded within the hardscape. I mean, maybe that's a location for where the tree could be. It's kind of near the recess and wouldn't be impacted by needing to be pruned because it's growing close to the building, to the architecture. But where are the telephone poles in the plan? Are they shown in the civil drawing?
That would
yes.
be, yeah, that would be my concern is the telephone pole locations and the wires.
Can we
Let's
go
see if-
back?
So
You want to go back? Oh, let me just reopen it.
you can see them here, here, and here.
I see. So if we were talking about putting a tree here,
Right, but the wires run straight between poles, right?
I see.
So they're
Okay.
running right in the tree.
And the lowest wire is gonna be 14 feet, is that correct? Or is it supposed to be higher? We hope it doesn't sag. supposed to be higher, right? Because 14 feet is supposed to be the minimum.
I think you're right. I
Yeah,
think it's
13.6.
ideally at 16 feet, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that also limits the type of trees that can be planted along the sidewalk too. I mean, eastern redbuds have a mature height of 20 to 30 feet.
Yeah.
So I'd be iffy about planting those underneath the telephone wire. But then
Yeah.
you could also look at some other large shrubs, maybe like a Emelanchier, like a serviceberry. They'll still provide you shade, but they're not going to get massive, and they're easy to prune and keep in check.
So why don't you look at some of those and then just make sure they're salt tolerant and will tolerate the heat. I actually love Amelanchiers, but I don't know if they'll tolerate the heat.
I'll look into that. Yeah, this is going to be a shady side too, though, northern facing. So
Well, maybe if you had the raised planters and had those trees directly behind them, then that would help with their roots, keeping them cool,
yeah,
deflecting some of the heat from the pavement and sidewalk of the street back out at the street.
one thing too, just I'm going back to the other service berries. Obviously, they produce berries in the summer. That could get messy too along the sidewalk. So I might.
Well, at some point here, we've done a lot of taking away from nature. So, you'll have birds in the trees. It'll be very charming and pleasant the other
Like that
way.
mentality. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so before we get off of this, the paver, I know that one of the other members of the committee who I think is not here or might have joined late, these patio insets, I think we talked about them being permeable at one point.
Yes, we did.
Are they permeable? Because that would be another way, you could actually do some green infrastructure in there in terms of your plantings and your stormwater and have, the edges of the beds be, the excess rainwater could go into the beds in there. Instead of the beds being raised and then the mulch slopes and then stuff runs off, it could go the other way around. Might be kind of nice.
Yeah, my only concern to make sure that we're ADA compliant on them, on the pathways.
Well, as far as I know, all the permeable paving is ADA compliant. It's more, the levelness and the straightness of it, and then having it be permeable. I mean, I've installed them before, so.
I mean, we can certainly look at it as our first option and see what we have for selections and, but I agree. I mean, stormwater management's important, especially in this area. So, okay.
It's important, period. And getting more so with these crazy storms we keep having. And it will help you with your snow removal in the winter for sure, because the ice melts into the permeable sections. So you have a lot less ice to worry about. So you don't have to salt and sand out there. In fact, you're not supposed to.
Okay, we move on. This was the pocket park across the street from the train station. And this was a design along with paving patterns and this goes back to the initial planning board desire to speak to the train station. I know the comments that were in the latest document said that we didn't have to speak to the train station, but I think that this is a successful way to do it. So we're not trying to mimic architecture. We're not trying to, put Richardsonian elements in a non-Richardsonian building. But by taking just the colors of the building and the paving pattern and integrating it in, we've created a kind of a symbolic relationship between the two. And that led into a conversation, Kevin, about what happens if we extend it across. And then what I did is I extended across and just kept extending it to those patios so that there's a common denominator between this pocket park, the access kind of crosswalk, and then the entrance to the buildings. And it's all based on this pattern on the wall.
So you'd be using that pattern for the patios in front of the building?
Yeah, it was more the color. I mean, there obviously wouldn't be the same cut stone. They would be a smoother stone, but as far as just the variation in color and the sort of the deep earth tones. And it's not the entire, it's the sort of the front, similar to what I did here. Here was basically a welcome mat where the seating is, and then it could turn into a permeable paving if they chose to open this edge up for the restaurant.
Well, can you, the edge for restaurant, oh, that's the front edge of the building, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a brick building right here. So that's a building that's currently obscured. So then the second floor terrace, Julian, I'll let you describe what your thoughts were there.
Thank you. So the main feature of this green roof are going to be the 18-inch tall Corten steel planters. They're indicated by the darker line. What's it called? Shown on like the north side of this plan. A seed and herb mix will be sown inside of them. And then the circular areas cut into these steel Corten planters are areas with artificial turf, and it's space for people to have outdoor furniture, tables, chairs, recliners, stuff like that. I believe we have 4-foot wide walkways that take you through the space. And let me see if there's anything else. There's also in-ground LED strip lights that go along the rear side of those circular astroturf areas to provide some nice ambient light in the evenings. And you'll see pictures of that on the bottom left corner of the plan. Yes, that is it.
So do the plantings actually provide privacy? What's the tallest plant that might be in front of a bedroom window?
Yes, so the raised planting beds themselves are 18 inches, and then the actual height of the seed mix, I believe they get to be about an additional 18 inches tall. The mature plant, like the tallest plants in this mix will be an additional 18 inches.
What is the, what's in the mix, or what's the mix?
This is a, Ron, if you zoom into the notes section underneath the terrace planting plan, I have a little list of the plants included in this particular mix. But the name of this mix is Herb and Sedum Blend, Green Roof Seed, and this is sold by the urban farmer.
Yeah, I actually called them to get the actual mix, and there isn't somebody there who can tell me what it is right now.
This is information I pulled off of their website.
So, these guys all need a lot of sun. So the sun, I'm concerned about this not getting enough sun out there. That's my first comment. My second comment is I don't like the fake grass, and it gets extremely hot in the summer. It's not anything remotely environmentally sound, so I'm wondering what else could be done out there besides fake grass that would be inviting and yet not, I mean, I don't think you're gonna have anybody sitting on it, so I'm not sure what the need is to have fake grass, why you wouldn't just use patio, some other kind of patio or something else out there.
Yeah, that could totally be another type of permeable pavement. That could be a crushable ground cover, something that's tolerant to people walking through it.
Have you tried using something like eco grass or eco lawn, which is mostly fescues?
No, I have not. I'm going to look that up right now, though.
And one of them comes from I think Prairie Moon. I forget what the eco lawn comes from, but I've used the eco grass. I use it a lot actually, and it should. I can't imagine this area is going to get a lot of traffic.
It's really going to be from just the tenants and then their guests too. I agree.
So, it'd be something which you might mow. I think it goes to it. One of them seeds a little bit in the spring. I want to say sometime in May, and you might mow it high then just to knock off the seed heads. So it's not quite so shaggy. Or you might wait till it's mature and then mow it and just let it sit out there. But it's a nice blend, and it will tolerate shade.
And who did you say the company was? Was that Prairie Moon Nursery?
Prairie Moon, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. I would definitely be willing to use that there instead of artificial turf.
Okay, that would be great because I can hear the comments of a couple of people in town right now and they find out there's artificial turf up there.
Yeah, it was really just selected because in the off chance this was like a high traffic area, I didn't want anything to get beat up by foot traffic. But no, I like that. I'll check out the eco lawn from Prairie Moon Nursery.
I think that's
My sense,
eco grass from Prairie Moon.
Gotcha, eco
I'm not
grass.
sure who produces the eco lawn. I forget. Somebody else I know in town used it and I looked it up at one point.
my sense of the, the grass piece is that I don't know if anyone really expects to be walking on grass on a green roof, I think, but what I've seen is that the walking surface or even where these tables are located is a permeable paver. And then, the vegetation is within contained planters, like the Corten steel planters that you're proposing. But what is the permeable paver that is being proposed? Is it a masonry product or?
That's going to be specified by Ron, the architect.
Okay. Because I think something that might be nice out here is like a bison wood paver, and maybe you don't need the grass that you walk on at all. Maybe everything is, the wood paver gives it the warmth, and then you let the vegetation stay within the planters.
That might work too.
I love that idea.
What color is that, Kevin?
Well, there are
never
many different colors. I will let the design team pick, but they have light wood colors and like rich, dark mahogany colors. So,
Awesome. Yeah.
I think a wood paver would be nice out here, and then get and omit the low growing grass.
Right. Well, it'd be less maintenance, theoretically.
Especially if I think there's going to be a lot of shade in this space. The solar studies showed noontime the shade patterns, and I think that at any other time the sun's going to be low and will be casting a lot of shade. So I think hardscape might be better for much of this area.
So, yeah, I do know that grass will tolerate a fair amount of shade because it's under a hemlock. That was
Yeah.
one of the reasons we used it. Julian, I'm definitely think that this mix you have in the planters will not tolerate as much shade as I think is going to be out here.
I agree. Yeah, no, it's
So-
seeing that solar plan that Ron had. I agree.
And then the other piece that I'm thinking of is, you could try putting some taller stuff, even like a shrub in the middle of these beds, and then, underplant it with, ground covers and things like that, and maybe a few shade flowering things. And the more native stuff you have, the better, but there's also some stuff that's not native that would tolerate conditions like that, and you could do a mix. I aim for 70% native on all the stuff that I do, and I get pretty close most of the time.
Okay, I was looking at doing 100% native for this, just because I thought that was what was asked for. But if I can incorporate some sort of, non-native species, that'd be wonderful for this area up here.
Well, I think you could do it in both places. Any chance you could use birch out in front of the building?
Birch.
Just
Those
throw
things like sun, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Without adequate sunlight, they're just going to flop down.
Yeah, so maybe some kind of, like you were talking about, the taller shrubs,
Mhm.
something like that might be nice. I just think that it would add a little more visual interest out here.
Along the front, in between the sidewalk and the.
Well,
the-
also these planters here,
Oh, up here too. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
because that would make it, really interesting up there.
Yeah, you could. I mean, Clefairy alnifolia that would tolerate shade. Aronia too would tolerate shade.
Yeah, they
Talk about
tolerate less
surface area.
shade than the Clethra, though.
Yeah,
Button bush, maybe.
button bush, yeah, those get big though, don't they? But they don't have that much soil to grow in, so I guess they'd,
Yeah, that would be
Potatoes.
part of the limiting factor.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so just sort of, I think if you thought about it a little bit more and see if you can come up with something that, would flower. And if it flowers mid-season, that might even be nicer,
Okay,
because generally,
And
hang on a second. How you do I generally, when I do plantings, I'll do like, I'll have bulbs in the spring. They're not native, but everybody loves a good daffodil or two, because they
yeah,
say,
I agree.
and and then you can mix other stuff in there. And I think, I always will advocate for natives, but I also see where there's some things that you could put in there, both up here and down below in the front, where you might be able to create some interest year round. Okay, so anybody else on the committee have something to say about this second floor patio space? Ujwala, was that you talking or was that somebody else?
No, I thought we completed the landscaping. So I was going to, before I forget, I was looking at the plans and I was just wondering the lighting, street lighting, and I can see here they have the patio lighting as well. Is that the landscape lighting you're going to have? The second floor patio?
Yes, that is the in-ground LED strip lighting. That's going to be going around the rear perimeters of all those circular seating areas.
Okay. And are you planning to have some pole lighting also, or?
I don't have anything like that shown on the plan right now, but
Okay.
yes.
And also for the main plan, I mean, since you're on the lighting, I see that you have the, those utility poles, but I didn't see any street lighting, whether it's on your on this property or the street lighting or town street lighting. If you have any lighting along the perimeter of the border, sorry, the fencing.
Like Homer and Alden or the back of the
Yeah.
property?
Mhm. All around. Are they planning to have any street lighting for the parking? And along with any street lighting at Homer and Alden?
Well,
I-
Or will it
yeah.
be, or will it be just the town lighting, town street lights?
we were planning on just a town lighting for Alden and Homer Ave. I mean, the poles.
Okay.
Do you have
And do
sign?
you know the height of the street light? I mean, I was just wondering whether it would be, in line with any of the bedrooms or living spaces,
I may have it on a rendering that's coming up. I
Okay,
do superimpose on the photograph.
okay, sounds good. Yeah.
But you have like signage lighting at the front of the building,
Correct, yeah.
correct? Do you have any LED lighting out there or bollards out there to?
Not
get
in
some
the front.
sidewalk In the front?
I said not in the front. We're relying basically on the building lighting and the street lighting.
Okay, yeah, we should look at the facade and go over that.
Okay. I mean, if we were to place, bollard lighting, I would certainly place it along this path. And,
Absolutely.
Are you
And,
going to have a lighting designer on the project?
no, we don't.
I'm just curious about the foot candles. You're saying that you might have lighting along that path and maybe you need it at the Alden and Homer streetscapes, but for egress paths, and you need at least 1 foot candle. So, we're gonna need to see that's provided. Or
Well, I
to get,
can't,
to get a building permit, you need it.
right. I mean, our egress, lobby egress is here. We could certainly have building lighting the path along the sidewalk. This drops you pretty much in front of lighting on Alden Street. But no, we certainly, when we engage a lighting designer, to take a look at that. I would anticipate we'll be looking at some type of pathway lighting here. And we'll take a look at what Homer and Alden have to offer to see if it's sufficient.
How do you, all these spaces in the back on the surface? So people park here and then they walk across the parking lot and go in the back entrance?
Well, they can either go into the back entrance if of these commercial spaces, or if it's going in to visit a residence, or walking around to the front, or walking through.
Yeah, I think you're definitely gonna have to have some kind of pathway lighting in there. So people are comfortable to get out of their cars and walk back there.
Okay.
I'm definitely not suggesting pole lighting in the back, but something so people can walk around out there and and see. So Ujwala, did you get your questions answered about the lighting in the front, or are you just waiting for them to go to the facade? So you would
So in
plan,
that-
I'm sorry.
I'll just go to the facade. So we do have, building signage lighting, which will light back at the building. I'm showing a gooseneck style. It could be something LED that's a little different, but the idea being that the signage will be lit. Presumably, the buildings, while they're open, will have light coming out of the windows. These are some renderings of the, a little washed out, apologize for that, but of the those spaces. Just to get a sense of coming through this door here and how it would open up. This will be from the stairway at the rear. Comes and then opens up, and then this would be from this angle here, sort of an aerial.
Is that new that there's a stair that goes up to that green roof? I didn't think you had a stair previously.
There is from
He had it previously.
right there. It went straight at one point, and then I shifted it over to get you on access and to provide some relief for this as I started to develop these apartments.
Is that stair going to be controlled and it's only accessible to residents, or the space would be available to be used by the community?
Well, the idea is that this is residential private space. The controls would be at the entry doors into the building. There's no gate or anything here.
So how does that get secured?
It's I don't know. We suppose we could find a way to secure it, but the intent wasn't to secure it. Just give people, give residents access to it to get to their units and leave, and have the building hallways themselves secured.
That and that, I'm sorry, that's in the back where that is?
Right. So that'd be right here.
Is that the only way to get into the units that have their front door on the green roof? That's not the only way to get to them, is it?
No, you can enter into the building through the elevators,
Okay.
and then you'll be exiting to get to the unit on for these units. There'll be sort of exterior entrance units. This one, you would be able. Let me take that back. Each unit, with the exception of, I believe it's one. Has an entrance, an internal entrance off of the hallway, but does have an entrance onto the green space. So every unit, you'll be able to come in through the lobby, use the elevator, come in and enter your unit. this unit, and this unit would be accessed from solely from that green space.
Has that been reviewed by a code consultant or by the building inspector? In terms of egress, I'm just curious if that's compliant.
Well, I'll do an egress check on it, but I mean, this width is 24 feet, I believe. So it'd be sufficient to come out and down through the building. You know, once you've exited to get to a public way. But I'll certainly take a look at it. So it's really, this became a function of the width of the building versus getting a hallway that would come down it and actually work with
Mhm.
these.
Yeah, I would just advise to have that checked because it's not a matter of distance. I think it's a matter of you're not exiting your unit out into a rated corridor that gets you to a right of way. You're making your way across the roof of a building that could potentially be burning below you and is not rated. So
I've done this in, you know, I actually did it on a healthcare project, and so I know that there's code, you know, there's the ability to do it. The
okay.
roof is going to be created. It's a separation of uses, so I will check that. I appreciate that.
Okay. Before we leave the topic, I mean, it was brought up a while ago, but I wanted to go back to the pocket park, and I just had one comment on that, and more of a question actually.
Which
Are you
pocket park are
proposing
you talking about?
the pocket park that is at the entrance from Homer Ave?
The little triangular one.
Yeah, sorry for going all the way back here. I just we left this quickly, and I wanted to go back to it. Are you proposing the duotone colors? You said you were going to take some colors from the historic train station, but would it be both the light beige color and the dark, the red terracotta? You'd be using both of those in the landscape?
Yeah, I believe in the renderings I'm going to show you, I showed it, and I do believe I used a border on a few of them, similar to this.
Okay, I'm kind of hesitant to do that. I like the idea of using the same pattern to relate back to the train station. I'm just wary of using the same colors, and that would
Well,
make
can
it
we
here. Yeah,
see what it looks like first, and
yeah, sure.
we've got renderings. Let's take a look and see what he's got.
Hmm.
So in this, I'm going to zoom in here.
Oops.
So this picks up that patterning across, sort of basically a crosswalk that we've created to separate, you know, Homer from the parking lot. And then it continues, and I did not show it as a border here. I showed it as a consistent color. Along these patios. You know, as I develop this, I could develop it as a border and have dual tone. But the idea was that, and it really doesn't read well here, but to have sort of that vocabulary and acknowledgement of the Richardson building carried in the paving pattern, just very subtly. Let's see if I got something a little better than this. It really doesn't show it, but this shows the plantings that Julian had selected.
Yeah, so I think this is where both Brendan, who's traveling, and myself are missing trees in here. And I really hate the fact that your building has these poles in front of it. But I think if you can figure out how to get some trees in here, that would be helpful, or taller shrubs to help break up the mass, because this is a really, really big mass. It's a big change for this area in terms of the massing.
Those wires are actually in line with level 2 and not higher than the roof line of the building.
They should be down farther. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm asking the question about where they're actually located because this makes it look like they're high up above the roof line and
Exactly.
would not be impacted by a tree that's even 25 feet high.
Well, let me get to a rendering that, there we go. So this is sort of superimposed on a photograph. This was the original photo, and then this is the pocket park and the entrance to the back, and let's see if we have one that has. This is from Alden Street, so you can see these wires they do look, if there's the same on Homer, then they do look like they're a little above level 2.
I think that's worthwhile checking out just to make sure. And then you can, Julian can go from there.
Yeah, so here we go. Here's a real pole versus a model pole. So you can see that they are quite high, actually. They're lower going down Alden Street, and then down Homer Ave, they're higher, and possibly because they're so far apart.
Oh,
But we'll get a height to those.
okay. And what are those trees shown there?
Yeah, I'm standing on the other side of the tracks, and these are on the track side.
Yeah, but you have trees in your rendering, is that correct? To the left of the building?
Oh, this is the Canadus
Oh,
Circus.
the Circus, but that's a straight Circus, is that correct, Julian? It's not the ruby.
Correct, straight Cercis canadensis, straight species.
So it's green, so that should be shown as green, actually. So I was like, what is that over there?
I think Ron's showing the pink flowers as if it was blooming in the spring.
Well, yeah, we're showing red leaves too, sorry.
It
It looks like a thundercloud plum, or one of those. And I'm like, yeah.
So these are the trees that are along that pathway.
Yeah,
Those
the
edges.
red buds bloom before the leaves come out too, so sorry, guys. I'm not buying it.
Yeah, so this sort of puts it in context. This was one of the requests of doing, and I normally do these as a matter of course, it just hadn't got to it when we met last. So as far as the wires go and the telephone poles, we're dealing with basically the reality of the situation, right? And the poles are there. If they're
Well,
not going to come down,
If the poles are higher, then Julian has more latitude with what he picks out there to grow in there, to put in
that's
there.
correct. Right.
So
So
the-
that, get that answer, Julian, so that you can have a good sense of what space you have to deal with.
Wonderful, thank you.
So, but that shows the poles. And the lighting, is that a light? That's a light fixture there that's at the corner of Alden and Homer, correct?
That's correct. And then this pole is the one that is at the corner of the little brick building. And then in between, I've obscured it because I showed my model pole. But I can take a look at the photograph. But if you just chase these wires, you can see how high this actually is along here.
Yeah, but are they necessarily going to have another light between these two poles?
I honestly don't know. I think we'd have to look at what the city's plans are as far as what's the documentation they have. I know they're doing road work. I'm not sure if they had actually drawings that showed what's going on those poles.
Okay, so I think it would be useful to definitely do some kind of a foot candle study out here because it gets dark at 4 o'clock in the winter. And if you've got a deli or somebody who's selling stuff up until 8 or 10 o'clock at night,
Right.
then it's going to be really dark out in front, even with the lights on. I'm not asking you to put pole lighting in. I'm just, let's think about people walking around and, getting some bollard or some kind of lighting. Maybe if there's raised planters, there's LED lights on the edges or something. I don't know.
Now, we'll definitely engage a lighting designer to help us work out some of those, some of these issues.
Okay.
So what I would like to do is take a second, go back to my email for what I had sent out so that I can show you the color study. So if you just bear with me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Right now, yes, it's got Alden Street and Homer Avenue facades on it.
Okay, now I've got the new file loaded, but it says my screen sharing is paused. So resume share.
Probably you'll have to reshare it, like click out of this one and then reshare it, Ron.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have the elevation materials key. So what I added here was just some color palettes, potential color palettes for trim, field colors, window frame colors and things like that. So we get a sense of how these things would sort of come to life in the different scenarios. So it's not sort of that bland gray that I'd shown in the original models. On this one, the clapboard, maybe a darker color and to help these pop with a cream trim color and then a black window frame. And then we get back to more of the grays.
Where's the one with the brick?
So this would be 2 stories of brick veneer, run the clapboards sort of up and over as a frame for it. And then this one, so on this one, we wouldn't have an awning, we'd actually have a flat panel sign on the building.
So what's the difference between each? Sorry.
That's okay.
What's the difference between each of the options with the brick veneer? So you have, type 1 has the brick.
It has a brick and clapboard, has a little more detail on the decorative brackets.
Okay.
And then we look at a shingle style for the upper story with clapboard on the lower 2 levels with fixed awnings. And here we have the major base coming out would be that farmhouse style of the board and batten. And then a recessed darker color clapboard siding.
Where is the brick in this option in the elevation?
No, I'm sorry, this was just a generic thing, so that brick is not in this option.
Okay.
I could X that out. And then this one would have a metal panel on the recess with sort of traditional clapboard on the extrusions.
Yeah, I think this one mixes and matches modern and traditional architectural elements a little too much for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that comment.
So you say it mixes too much?
It's too
What was
mixy.
that,
matchy.
Ujwala?
I
Yeah.
agree with Kevin, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the metal panel.
Mhm.
No, it's just an option of introducing a more modern sort of style with it.
Yeah,
This one, the board and batten, I wanted to show as, because it is a popular sort of vernacular now, and I don't think it's appropriate for this. I think it would, it's a style that 10 years from now, you may look back at this and say, why'd you do that?
yep. I'm gonna agree with that.
And it makes the building look taller.
Does make the building look tall, yeah. The shingle style of both are traditional New England. It does create a datum line at the top level and lets the first 2 stories read. And then this sort of a combination of the brick and the clapboard on the recesses, so you do have sort of a defined feeling of this wall is not 3 stories high, it's 2 stories high, just from the materiality.
Mhm.
And then the upper sort of clear story is a little lighter.
Is there a type 4? Did I miss that?
Now, what I did was when I did these, I renumbered them to 1, 2, 3, and 4. Before it was 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm
Okay.
sorry about that. I just,
Okay.
it made sense. I caught myself on that.
So
And the reason this file is pretty large, so I wanted to show it, and I sent it to Alvaro so you would have the larger, because when I send them, I have to reduce the file size, and it degrades the images and the quality. So I wanted to give you one that was at a higher resolution, but it's just a larger file.
yeah, no problem. So my comments on this would be that, for one, I'd like to see the materials in the actual rendering, and maybe we can select which view we should see that in. Because thank you for putting the building in the context of the streetscape in the 3D perspectives that you put together, but I think they're lacking the actual materiality, so it's still difficult to understand how it fits into the context from a material standpoint. And so I'm leaning towards getting an option or the 3 options. So I'm scratching out number 5 if we don't like that one. Could we get a perspective rendering of option 1, 2, and 3
Okay.
and see what those look like in the context? So I would take the view that you produced, maybe from the train tracks. I don't know. Let's look at the 3D views that you have. Keep going. Like maybe this one. I don't know what everyone else thinks. What do you think, Kathy?
I want to see, it's too far away. Well, it's too far away. I mean, I feel like the building's too far away. I mean, we could see it in that and maybe in the one where it shows it up close.
Yeah, maybe the one where you don't really see much of the building, but you see the context of the train station, the one that's right below. I mean, I would do it in this one too, the one that's the sheet
Well,
above here.
I could
Yeah,
zoom,
this-
I could zoom in on this so that this, these 2 blocks, for example, are full, fit the screen.
I have a question for you. Can you stand on the other side of the street or go down there with somebody else and stand on the yellow line and take this photograph for the context? Because we almost can't see enough. I mean, I
Oh,
don't
you mean-
know. Not gonna get enough of the Richardson building.
As if I'm driving this car. So if I was in the right lane, looking down the street. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, even though I mean, I know you're trying to get the Richardson building in and you actually have so maybe just even back farther in that parking lot. Well, what I'm trying to do is see a little more of your building, but keep the Richardson building and maybe that brick, the last part of that brick building that's gonna be your neighbor. So we can see them all together. Because right
Okay.
now, the roof line the Richardson building, while it's useful and the colors of the building are there, which makes it useful, it blocks a lot of.
Sure, so
Sure.
I'll take a view somewhere over here that shows the edge of this and the edge of this and the way the way Home Street kind of bends as it goes.
Right.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful for this, but that would
Right.
be interesting because then we see these two neighboring buildings plus whatever you're doing on that could definitely be one of them, right, Kevin?
Yes, I think so. And I would do the full elevation on the previous page, just for good measure.
We
So-
just, sorry, we just have a raised hand from Terry.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
Coming back to the facade treatments,
Yes.
Ron, could you bring them up, please? Would you consider basically alternating two of the treatments? Let's say the cedar, the shingles, and the brick. Rather, I hope you're not talking about having one uniform treatment on all 5 of those facades. In other words, if let's say you had 2, and then next to 2 you had 1, or you alternated them, or there are 2. If you take the whole look of the whole 5 in a row, you'll see 2 of them are larger than the other 2. The 2 on the end, as they get closer to the residential neighborhood, are smaller. Do you want to accent those differences by treating the facade elevations differently? That's my question. No, I noticed that neither you nor Kevin rendered an opinion when either of those 2 were up.
Well, I think it's like Kevin said, it's really difficult to tell right now. And to see it. So we could see that as an option also.
I guess maybe what we should do then is present the full range of things and show how we would alternate 2 or more patterns.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think we'd like to see it fully rendered so that we can better comment on it, and
Okay,
we'll allow you to use your design judgment to alternate the pattern as you think is appropriate, and then we can comment on it further from there.
fair enough. Thank you.
My comment on type 1, in addition, I don't think I have right now any modifications other than, thank you, Terry, other than making some alternating schemes. My only other comment on number 1 is that potentially the brick does not need to continue up to level 2, that it would just be maintained at level 1 for the commercial ground floor. And then I think I'll leave it at that and then see what that looks like in the renderings.
Could we see both? Like 2 floor brick with 1. I know what you're saying in terms of that, but I actually was sort of enjoying the fact that this was 2 floors of brick, unless somebody else wants to weigh in and say.
I agree. We could see both. Yes.
Because I thought that was an interesting idea to make the 3rd floor fade back into the background more, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that'd be good to see.
I mean, I would opt for the 2 floor of brick. I think 1 is insufficient. There's just not enough of it.
Mhm.
I'll show both. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not that much work. I'll just show both so that we have a sort of a true sense of it.
That'd be great. Thank you. I think that would be helpful.
Are there any other questions?
From the committee? Anybody in the committee have more questions?
I don't think so. I was going to recommend running through our previous report because we had highlighted some items that we wanted the applicant to provide answers to, and Maybe before we do that, we open it up to the public. What do you think, Kathy? And then we come back to this, or do you want to run through?
I'd like
these?
to open it up to the public because there's some people have been waiting
Yeah.
very patiently. So George, Rakus, I know you were speaking earlier and I asked you to wait. Do you want to make?
I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Is the rendering to scale?
Is the rendering to scale? Yes, and then on the photographs, it's a function of SketchUp where you can introduce a photograph
Sure.
and scale it in.
Can you go to slide five for me, please?
Slide 5.
I think that's this. Oh, never mind, you passed it. Right here. So right here, this slide right here, it seems that the building is actually sunken down where street level is. If you're following the path, the street level of the corner going across, it looks like it's actually cutting across the first level. That's why I asked if it's a scale, because the first story on the existing brick building looks like it's probably ending in the middle of the second story in your building, just to put a scale perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a, this is sort of you can tell you can see the photographs, how it's not a true lot, one photo. It's a montage of photos put together. And especially when you look at this site and how, you look at this, if you took a photo from here, you're picking up part of this thing. So for these types of images, you scale it the best you can. The model is to scale. It's a floor plan scale.
Sure.
When you pose it on a rendering, on a photograph that's a perspective, like some of the ones at the end, you can control it by, in SketchUp, they have a feature where you can sort of size it and there's a grid and things like that. On this one, it's a little more difficult. And I mean, I didn't understand this what you're referring to. It's a little more difficult because you're taking a montage of photographs that are actually at different scales themselves, because they're photos I was taking. So, you have if you look at for example, on the left side, the gas station, I literally walked down the tracks in a straight line and took a photo. But because that's set back a little bit, it reads a little off in scale. So when you kind of weave these things together, you do the best you can. And it's really a representation and not really a true rendering of, as if it was, put onto a photograph that was specific to one area, for example, one view.
I was just asking because in this model, it doesn't look like the building's 35 feet tall or 38 feet tall. It looks like it's sunken down. And I was just curious, is the building going to sit below street level?
No.
Okay.
No, it's
so it's going to be
great.
bigger than this.
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to go in and see if I could find a point to measure from. Like, what would I use as a scale on all of these photographs?
Well,
For
I mean,
example,
just the first floor in the existing building that won't be changed, you can line that up with your first floor on the top level. So that way you can bring it all up and superimpose it that way. So the building that will stay there and not be demolished will end at the same point where your first floor ends. So that way we can get a better perspective of what the scale of these buildings will be comparatively to each other into the existing neighborhood.
Okay.
And my follow-up question, you mentioned solar capacity. Did you go delve any deeper into that? How much power the building could generate?
no, we did not.
Okay. Next, you said you had 35 spots will be accessible to electrical vehicle charging. Will those be 240 volt drops with a 50 amp circuit to accommodate not supercharger speed, but to charge a vehicle overnight? Or will they be 120 volt drops with a regular battery with a regular plug?
That I cannot answer for you. If Charlie's on the line and he can answer because he has done it on his other properties. to make them EV ready.
Will the building owner pay for the charging stations or plugs?
I can't answer that for him.
Okay. And then my last question to you is, how many spots are reserved for the commercial spaces?
The 24 spots in the, well, let me get to the one, sorry. So these spots on the surface are for commercial.
And how many proposed commercial sites do you have?
We have 22.
So approximately 2 spots, or you have 22 commercial spots? Excuse me,
Oh,
commercial building portions of the building. That's what I meant. How many businesses could fit theoretically?
well, I mean, we indicated subdivision lines, but you know, it's until you have someone who's going to lease a property, you really don't know how you're going to carve it up. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces shown. 6 spaces shown.
Okay. And just now that you bring this up, what is the distance between the sidewalk and the perimeter of the building to the closest point?
To the closest point, I believe we have 6'6".
Okay. And so the patios you were describing, what's the rough area for each patio in front of the doors you were describing?
Rough area, for example, this one would be approximately maybe 300 square feet.
So 3 by 10?
Yeah, about 30. Yeah, about 30 by 10. This
30 by 10,
one,
sorry.
this one's probably about the same. This one is probably 150 or 200 square feet.
Okay, I'm just, for design purposes, I was just curious, if you put a 3-foot planter in front of your building, how much space is it between the planter and the sidewalk?
Well, if you look at the property and the sidewalk here, you'll see that it changes. So if we put a 3-foot planter, let's say, you can see my cursor, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you put a 3-foot planter in this area, is that what you're referring to, or down here?
On the forward portions, not near the doors.
Not near the doors.
So
if you
let's say
put a-
you're designing like a wall of flowers or plants.
Sure.
I just
Yeah,
want to
so-
see if 2 people are walking on the sidewalk, will
Right.
they come into contact? Will the plant overgrowth encroach on the sidewalk?
I would suspect that we would hold them back so they wouldn't. The sidewalks are, I believe, 5 feet wide at the narrowest.
So they're going
So
to
it
be
depends-
5 feet wide?
The city sidewalks.
Okay.
Right. To give you a scale, this door is a 3-foot door. If you see this, give you a sense of how wide that is.
Yeah, I was
I
just
don't-
looking at your other photos where you said there's, potential for outdoor seating, and I just wanted to see the footprint of a table and 2 chairs and how they would space up correctly in that existing space.
Sure.
And that's all. Thank you.
Ron, you have that on one of your slides. You have the patio seating.
I know I had it in the other package. I'm not sure if I had put it in this one or not. I may have it on the rendering.
I think you had it on a rendering.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you got it on a perspective. All right,
All right.
there
So
it is. There it is. There's one view of it.
Right. So this will give you a sense of scale for a table with 4 chairs sort of sticking out a little. It's not restaurant seating. It's designed more for just casual deli.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so do we have other people? Alvaro,
Yes.
okay, so can you,
Yep. The next person is Mark Tassoni.
okay,
Thank you, Mark Sony, 49 Hawthorne Road. Surviving war and peace on this. How realistic is this picture compare to what's actually going to be broken ground for site formation. How realistic is this picture to it?
Well, the footprint is based on the drawings that you've seen. The elevations model is based on the elevations you've seen. It's a representation, it's cartoony, it's not. It is what will be built from a footprint perspective. Whether the plants are gonna look like that, we've had that discussion. The paving may look, if I took a drone photo from here, once the building's constructed, this paving may look a little lighter, for example, things like that. But the actual footprint of the building, the model is based off of the drawings.
Okay. And it's gonna be in a triangle shape. I'm going by what I'm seeing in this picture in front of me. And the back is gonna be limited space for moving around, especially for the parking and for the interior residents. Why wasn't security more talk about if it's not going to be any lights in the back?
Well, it's not to say there aren't going to be any lights in the back, which we haven't shown them. But that doesn't mean that we have to meet minimum criteria for foot candles and security and things like that. So it's just that we did not have a lighting designer on board yet.
And the small pocket driveway, that's coming off of Homer. How is that going to be controlled traffic wise?
Bear with me a sec. So it's one way in, one way out. As you come into the parking lot, you'll have the ability to turn around without doing a 3-point turn, as well as for residents that will go into the garage. They'll also come out of the garage and they'll use the same entry and exit. We're discussing putting a blinking light similar to what you see on parking garages. So as a car pulls up, it was actually one of the peer review comments for civil. So as a car pulls up, this light would activate so that anyone coming off of the light would know that there's a driveway there.
So won't you be needing a peer study traffic report for that?
And I'll leave that to Terry. I don't believe we needed one.
No,
That-
none was required or requested.
The blinking light was on the garage or on the?
No, we would mount it on potentially the utility pole or the one that's right around the corner. So that it would have vehicle exiting or whatever the nomenclature is.
But this is a town street. Would they accept that to have that there?
I don't know,
It's a
Terry.
It's a public way. And then an extra garage light. It's gotta be a bit of a warning for people taking the turn off of Main Street to come in. Cause how they got, we did downtown with that light on the island. That's gonna be a wide turn and it's gonna be right on top. So there's gotta be some sort of warning that there's a garage light blinking for that reason.
Okay.
So there's
Okay.
no answer for that.
I guess I don't understand your question.
No, Ron, there's two ways of dealing with it. As a car is leaving the site and approaching the bend in the driveway, heading, I'll say for lack of a better directional, heading north towards Homer Ave, there would be a trigger at that bend. When the car passes that bend, that would signal another light or flashing beacon at the back of sidewalk on a pole, to cars making that turn from Main Street onto Homer Ave, approaching the driveway would see that blinking and be alerted to a potential car exiting the driveway. That's it. That's at least one way of handling. There are others, but I believe that's the one that deals with where the beacons are located on our site and being paired in such a way as to alert traffic on Homer Ave.
And for my reasons to say that, is because from Main Street downtown, that turn, it's a quick turn. If people coming down onto Homer Ave, that it's gonna be a sharp corner. And you gotta realize it, but maybe
Mark, proceeding east or west?
going towards your site off of Main Street,
So
going
he's
east.
heading east.
east.
That's what we're talking about, alerting traffic, making that corner, that turn at the pizza place.
Yes, and right there, there is a regulation traffic light there too.
Right.
So right there, there's gonna be a controlled traffic light and this garage light. Okay. As of what I can see on this is, and I have nothing against it, but this is a computer rendering of the site, right?
Correct.
Right.
What are you
Okay.
getting at, Mark?
I'm getting at traffic control from downtown east onto Homer. More than one car, two cars come at the same time. And the blinking garage light, might think the person coming out from the site using that blinking garage is gonna be turning left or right quickly and not really pay attention to the coming off east from Main Street with where the traffic light is. It's gonna be a quick break for the operators from downtown east going down to Homer. So
Mark,
that,
one other solution, okay?
Yeah.
And this is traveling to Ashland from Route 9 in Framingham. It is a very winding road. I forget the name of that main street that comes in across the brook from the town, the other end of Main Street. There are a number of places where they have turns like this on that road, and there have been signs posted by the DPW that say, caution, driveway ahead. That's a standard way of dealing with turns like this, where there's a driveway opening onto the curve before you get to the corner.
yeah, that's
So there's all sorts of ways to deal with it. That's all we can tell you.
And from that way, that's from Framingham to Route 9, that's Badger Road coming towards downtown to Myrtle Street.
Okay,
Oh,
that's-
I'm just saying the traffic goes a lot faster on that road than it's going to go
Yes.
on Homer Ave.
I see, and this is to me, it's a shorter turn radius from downtown east traffic light to the Homer. It's a quick turn for those traffic, and the people coming out of the garage may not see it, or maybe in the parkers are coming out and the traffic coming off there may not see them.
well,
Go ahead.
I think, Mark, that there's a couple of solutions have been proposed, and I think the people will see a lot of construction for a good year down here before, we even get people in the building. So I think at that point, people will be used to going a little more slowly, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, and courteous both ways.
Well, we can always hope, right?
Okay, I'll jump off that and.
Do you have any other comments?
Yes, I do. I got one that it's a futuristic question. I asked it to other boards, but I'm not gonna ask, I'm gonna ask it in a different way to both the boards and the committee here. Once you get through these marathon meetings and talking and what's going on and how to instruct each other what to do and how the big two-way street compromise, what's the goals? And I want this from the the builders first, the developers first. I want this first. What's the goal that you're hoping to meet down the road with this? Then after, I want to have design answer the same question in that same way. What's the goal? Because there's been a lot of talk, over 2 hours for this. So there's got to be a goal being set. There's got to be some sort of sight down the end of the tunnel. What is it? Developer first.
Okay, so Mark, I think you've seen this presentation.
Yes.
Okay, so we're working out the final goal, which is there's going to be a building here. And we're working out what it should look and feel like. And we're discussing a whole bunch of elements of it, and none of them are totally cast in stone right now. So I think that is the goal. I don't think there's an additional goal per se.
Well, there wouldn't be a long, for lack of a better term that I could think of it, marathon talkings about everything if there wasn't a success story that wants to be followed to it. So the developers, what is your success story to follow all these meetings?
I mean, I'll answer that as best I can. As an architect, my success story is that the city looked favorably on this, that people walk by it and feel like it's always been there, that there's a level of comfort that it adds to your downtown, to your community, and that it houses residents that will add benefit to your town. I don't understand other than that what you're really looking for.
Are you looking just for housing or for mixed residential business?
Well, it's about life. It's about enriching your town and producing the best product that we can possibly produce in conjunction with advice from people that you know that live in your town and that take the lead on these types of things. And to work with them and listen to them and add our, what my feeling is as an architect, and I have to defend it, and hopefully they agree with it. And if not, then we look at it and we revise it. And that's why you get a marathon meeting. I mean, this is a process, the way the process should work.
Okay, so
Yes.
Mark,
Design's hard, and this is a very complicated site.
Go ahead, Kath, go ahead.
okay, so I think that I'm gonna echo what Ron said for the committee right now. And I think that we've got other people on this call with their hands raised, and it's 9:45, and we still haven't finished discussing this and heard all the public input. So I'd like to let everybody else talk about this.
Okay, then I'll end this positively.
Great.
Madam Chair,
It'd be positive. I'll be positive.
Well,
Madam Chair, the developer has his hand up. I think he'd like to answer Mr. Dasoni's question.
Okay.
okay,
That'd be in my process, and he can answer, and then I'll be quiet after.
great, because I
Yes.
want
I
Charlie to
will
speak.
be quiet. This is positive, and I guarantee it.
Oh, I think he
You-
left. I think we lost him. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Oh, there
Well,
he
you
is.
said, it
Back
was said,
again.
Mark,
it was said
Mark.
at the beginning, let me finish, let me finish.
I
You guys-
would
you guys-
like
you
to
guys
let
had two-
Charlie answer the question, please. He's the owner of the project. Let him answer the question. or
Oh,
he's-
okay.
Charlie,
Go ahead.
Charlie? Charlie, got your hand up. I don't know what happened to him. All right, I don't know. I guess we'll just move on, Madam Chair. Sorry for
Okay.
the interruption.
Now, and then I'll end positively. It was said in the beginning by the chairperson, that you'd be going so far, and then once the committee and developer hashes out everything, there'd be time for public comment.
He did
Two-
volunteer to me, Mark, that it would take about a year from the time construction began to occupancy. If that's your question, there's the answer.
That's that answer. And this end, and I'm being positive, everything's communication, all good. But when you say you're gonna start off with talking to each other and you have no time limit. It's just making sure that you don't forget citizens that are listening only to get their questions and information out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I see Alvaro, who's next on your list?
It will be John Gonfredi.
Okay, Joan, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm on the Historic Commission, just full disclosure, but I'm speaking as a private citizen. I just have a couple of comments to make. I would like to see separate buildings and maintain 2 historic buildings on the site. I also missed the last meeting where I believe you discussed the blasting and the below ground parking, and I am definitely opposed to below ground parking, and I hope the town puts in some type of a bylaw that prohibits it in the future. And having said all of that, George, I believe, talked about different materials on the different sections as if they were separate buildings. And I have a place in Falmouth, and I can tell you that downtown Falmouth, that's kind of what they've done. It's probably just kind of built up that way over time, but it gives you a much more of a village feeling. And I would like to see a little more of that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
So I have a question for you about that comment, though, that in downtown Falmouth, the buildings are separated.
Some are and some aren't. Some of them are separated, and some of them are built together, probably over time. I don't think they were all built at once, but they are connected, and they have different facades, different colors, different fronts, and they're not just this big imposing building. I like some of the colors in the brick building, the brick, and putting the brick in the back with the clapboard or the shingles at the top. I think those are nice mixes. I just think that if they were different on the different buildings, that it would break it up better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else, Alvaro?
Yes, we have one more hand raise. It's from Charlie Samudo. I know you're on mute, Charlie. I don't know if there's just maybe like some misfault.
I don't know. He's got his hand up, but I don't know. Charlie, are you there?
You know how to reach him on the phone and ask him if he wants to make a comment?
Yeah, that's how I did last time, Madam Chair. Let me try again.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Hold on.
So Ron, I guess this might be a question for you and Rick. Well, we're waiting to see if we can find Charlie and if he has something to tell us. I've talked to several people in town and they tell me the water table is really high in this area. It's like high all over downtown, apparently. So I'm just curious what your plan is for the underground garage and if you find a lot of water in there, you're gonna have to keep pumping in that area.
We're expecting to get some boring information tomorrow on that. So we don't have the exact information, but it's forthcoming.
Okay.
I have one more quick question, really
this?
fast.
Wait, who's asking?
George,
George, okay. Go ahead.
will any public funds be used to build this?
I would say the answer to that would be no.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, apparently had difficulty unmuting his microphone. I see there in the box that it looks like that is, Charlie should be able to speak now. Charlie, are you there? Charlie? Charlie?
I can't see him on this.
Oh, he's down on the lower end down there next to Joan. and below Bill on my screen. Charlie,
There he is. I
okay,
see his hand raised. Charlie, if you want to speak, go ahead.
all right. I guess we've done the best we can. I apologize for the break in the action.
Sure. And Alvaro, did I just see somebody else's hand up?
No, that was everybody.
Okay. Thought I saw something flash by and then disappear again. Okay. Kevin, I don't know what you think about that pocket park at the front next to the small brick buildings, but I think I want to see that. I want to see a better rendering of that and how that would feel in there to sit in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do want to see a rendering of the horizontal paver surface. I kind of like this seating area, although it only has one bench under it, so it kind of seems over to.
My legs above me, my arm was gone, so I closed my eyes, thinking to myself, if I just keep breathing, I will.
I don't know who we're hearing here.
It's coming from Charlie. I don't know. Charlie, can you speak now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
I just figured out how to do this computer thing. So, just so you know, Ron, can you go to the screen with the pocket park against the old original building?
Charlie, could you just unmute the background noise because we can just hear that right now?
Yeah, hold on one
Thank
second.
you.
It makes my life a whole lot easier, and it's 100%.
So the existing building that's there, down the road, we're hoping maybe a coffee shop will go in there. So we'd like to put a door on the side of the building and access that little pocket park.
The triangle pocket park?
Yeah.
All right,
So
I think
that-
we need to show a much better representation of that. And I actually want to see what it would look like if you're sitting there. So that door would be this door you're showing on the left.
Yeah, or, we don't have any plan for that right now, but down the road, we'd like to remodel that building and open up the building in the front, put bigger windows and also put some windows and a door on the side.
Are you talking about the train station, Charlie?
No, where
A single-story brick building.
the original building that we're not gonna touch, there's a pizza place and 2 barber shops in it.
Oh, the pizza
On
place,
Homer
I
Ave.
see. He's talking about the pizza place building.
Yeah, so that,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 hair places and a pizza place in there.
Yeah, oh, there it
that
is. That's
pocket
right.
park is right against that building, Terry.
Yeah, I see it. That doorway is coming from the brick building. I see it, what you're talking about now, Charlie.
Okay, so I think,
We'd like to put something in that building later on that would, open up that whole area and, be the gateway for our building to allow people to come in.
okay, so I think you should show that in a rendering. And I'm curious about the height of the plantings out there, especially now that you're talking about this relative all of this, because based on what I looked at for the current planting plan for this area, I don't have a great feeling of separation from the driveway sitting in there. So it doesn't feel comfortable to me. So in particular, I'm thinking about shrubbery along that driveway edge and a mix of things so that'd be flowering at different times that would tolerate the salt and the heat, things like that. But something that would sort of,
Landscape list then.
yeah, I think something that would look, think about like sitting out there in midsummer and you might have a wall of greenery, whereas obviously in the winter, the leaves are going to be gone. You might not necessarily have the wall of greenery. Could even be really tall grass, but you've only got one layer of thickness there. And I realize it's a little tiny park, so I'm just trying to see if you guys can be a little more creative about it. And figure a couple of things out in there. I mean, maybe you could get a couple of trees in there somewhere, smaller trees or taller bushes. It will give you a better sense of scale, both
Okay.
now for this additional purpose. And I think you ought to show something that shows whatever you're thinking it is, Charlie, just even off the top of your head, what that side entrance coming out of that building might look like.
Yeah, so I think we should let the landscape architect come up with something and
Well, and I think you guys should give them some direction on the side of that building so we can see what it might eventually totally look like there.
but
Yeah,
I
no.
think it would be nice to have it a little open as well, because if people are gonna go to the new businesses in the new building, and then they can see across to that building as well to see that there's life in that building.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a nice idea. I just want to see what it looks like. What you
Yeah.
think it might, give us an idea. Here's our, a guess at it.
We're good at guessing.
Excellent. Okay, anybody else have comments from design review? Okay,
Right
anybody
now,
else?
I'm good.
Thank you. Anybody
I'm
else?
good as well.
Excellent, thank you. What do you think, Kevin? Are you good?
I am good.
Okay. So do we have open items from the last report?
But
Uh,
who was that?
Do we have open items from the last report we sent over to the planning
Yeah, I
board?
thought someone else was talking. That's what I'm looking at right now. One comment we didn't touch on yet was to provide more information on how stormwater is treated.
Oh, they still owe that to us.
Rick Salvo can answer that.
Yeah, so just really quick, and it's gonna become by way of report in our peer review responses, but basically the stormwater from the parking lot is captured in a deep sump catch basin, which discharges to a water quality inlet, which has a TSS removal rate of over 85%, which then will discharge into a subsurface infiltration facility. The roof of the building also goes into the same subsurface infiltration facility. So that'll reduce the rate of stormwater runoff leaving the site significantly. It will reduce the volume of stormwater leaving the site and promote groundwater recharge.
I think there's a zero groundwater leaving the site in Ashland, isn't there?
Zero groundwater?
No, sorry, zero stormwater leaving the site.
No, because I mean, that would be an impossible standard to attain. If you're on the side of a hill, water's always going to flow downhill. Just required to reduce the rate at which stormwater leaves the site.
Okay, yeah, I think I'd be really interested in that, and also this information about the water table.
Yeah, that's what we're waiting for, to be able to finish our report off and resubmit, which we should have tomorrow.
Okay, what about the soil contamination reports that you mentioned on the walkthrough, and I've never heard anything else about them again? Because my understanding, talking to now multiple people who've lived in Ashland for a really long time or their entire lives, is that there used to be a school bus depot back behind in this whole site. So, they were fueling buses and things like that back there.
I think Charlie's got his hand up. Charlie's probably has it wasn't me that told you that there was any contamination issues. I wasn't aware of any contamination issues, so I think I'll let Charlie answer that.
Charlie?
Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yeah.
can you hear me? Yeah, so we had to have a 21E report done when we bought the property. And there was no contamination in the soil. The bank wouldn't give us financing unless we had that survey done.
Does the town have a copy of it?
I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I don't think we ever had to give it to them. But we definitely had to do it for the bank. They wouldn't give us financing with it, without it.
Okay.
You want me to keep going?
Yes, please.
So signage, I think we understand that the signage for the commercial will be located in each of the recesses above the entry doors at the patio spaces. But we were looking for a general indication of residential building signage. Would that be located on the building, or would there be a sign with the name of the residential complex somewhere in the site?
Well, the entrance will have signage, as you can see here. The style and font and things like that, I just showed a generic. But yeah, the idea is that primary entrance and the one around the corner would have signage indicating that it is whatever the name that Charlie chooses for the building residences.
Okay, so is that also an entry into a vestibule that serves it serves 3 entrances. One is to the residential and then 2 is into the commercial. I'm looking at the plan.
Yeah, that's correct. It does.
So in that zone, there might be signage for both the 2 commercial spaces and the residential.
That's correct. So there could be signage on the wall of the glass here and signage on the wall, and then this leads to the residential lobby. So we could basically have 3 signs indicating, which door leads to what. And then there'll be signage on this space specifically for the residential lobby.
Then you'll have signage on the front for the various commercial entities out there.
That's correct. So along these faces will be signage panels that will fit into the style and, whether it's a consistent font or whether it's just a size that is consistent. And then for the main building from Homer, we'll have signage indicating that it's 49, Homer residences or whatever Charlie chooses to name it. And then once you're in this lobby, then, you could have a sign indicating what these commercial spaces are, and then this takes you into the lobby.
You wouldn't be able to access all those commercial spaces from inside there. You'd have to go outside to get at them. Is that correct? Because you'd be walking through commercial spaces. To do that, you don't show a hallway.
Right. So when you walked in this door, this would not take you, you're not directly in a commercial space. You're in basically a vestibule.
Mm-hmm.
There are doors multiple doors for this commercial, multiple doors for this commercial. This commercial would have, 1 door and then 1 door back here. So
that unit on Alden Street only has 1 door? Way over on the right?
yeah, as it's shown here, I mean, if this line were here and these spaces were combined, for example, then it would have 2 doors. I mean, until we have, lease, an indication of how this space will be leased, these lines are basically a best guess. But there are multiple entrances where we could put them. Whether this has 1 or 2 will be determined on how this space gets leased out.
Okay. Because every commercial entity has to have at least 2 entrances, right? Or 2 ways to get in and out. I mean,
Right, so there'll be this back corridor, which will also be an entrance in from this parking. So if you have the type of facility that, allows for a front and back door, for example, then you could have that. But it can serve as a second means of egress.
how soon do you think you're gonna know who's going in there?
That's a Charlie question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So Beth Reynolds has been telling me that there's a dancing school that wants to take the space, and they'd probably take the whole first floor, but that was a while ago, and I don't know what the current environment is with the school and you know, we just don't know. Even on Pond Street, that's been done for over a year and a half. We still don't have the commercial spaces rented.
Right.
So it's just a waiting game.
What's the total? The total is this one, the seven, what is that, 7,800?
Right, 7820.
That's the total space if all these spaces are rented by one entity?
Well, plus the 725 on the left, right?
Right, but that would be, that was a separate space. So if this was if this was rented to, for example, the dance studio, it'd be about 7,800 square feet.
Okay.
It seems to me that we might not need, or sorry, you might not need the residential signage at Homer just because, so you enter into this vestibule and then you have to go outside to get to the main residential lobby, which is at the, really at the back of the building. So I know this will all get flushed out, but I would anticipate that signage might only be required somewhere on this space, or I'm not sure. We can talk about that more, but it seems like you end up just going through the building to get there if you're a resident.
We'll probably just have the address number on the space for now.
Yeah. Okay. Other items we had on our report that you were looking at, Kathy, you touched on this already, the constructability of the excavation for the parking garage.
Kevin, sorry, before you continue, there is a hand raised from the public. So Helen, if you want to mute yourself and you want to let us know.
Hi, yeah, sorry I didn't ask this question during the public comment section, but I did just want to ask, because you were speaking about people who are wanting to rent out the spaces and the timeline with that. And I'm a little bit curious because you haven't gone before the Historic Commission and you have two historic buildings sitting on that site. And if those get deemed historic, which one's built in 1840 and one built in 1900 would get a historic significance determination. I'm just wondering what your time frame is and what you plan to do about that.
So, Terry, what's the time frame if it's deemed historic to knock down?
There's
the
a
house?
1 year demolition delay, demolition bylaw delay.
Yeah, I thought we looked into the houses being historic, and there wasn't a problem with that. But
I don't know who you asked. Who did you ask?
I believe Terry did some research on that.
Yeah, I don't know where the research came from, but Ashland has a bylaw. If once you apply for your demolition permit, you will automatically be given a hearing before the Historic Commission to determine whether those buildings are indeed historic. And just by the dates that they are built, 1840 and 1900, they would be determined as historic. And there's a 1 year demolition bylaw delay.
So it would take us time to develop the construction plans and get a lot of infrastructure in place. So
Excuse me, let me set the record straight here. We have not filed for demolition permit with the Historic Commission. We want to go through the process first to see if this project is viable. Once that's established, we will then go to the Historic Commission. If they put a
Okay, I
one-year
just was asking because you were talking about having tenants who were it sounded like you were talking about having tenants who were sort of waiting in the wings. And I was wondering about that 1 year delay, if you had factored it in.
we'll deal with that once we get the Historic Commission and they determine whether or not the properties are preferably preserved. We haven't passed that threshold yet. We're trying to get through right now, design review and ultimately the planning board.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Helen. I'll continue
Yes,
on.
thanks, Helen. Okay, so Alvaro, are there any other members from the public with raised hands right now?
No.
Okay,
No.
great.
Kathy, I'm sorry, I want to bring something up which I couldn't talk about earlier that you brought up. Was the car charging stations. So what we've done in the other building is we wired every single parking spot for the residents. So if they have a electric car, they just got to hook up right to there's a outlet in their parking spot that they can hook up right to that outlet. Well, it's a wire, not actually an outlet, because each car requires a different setting.
I thought there was only 2 or 3.
What's that?
I thought there were only 2 or 3 different charger types.
Yeah, but for us to go by charges for every spot, we wouldn't know. So what we did on Pond Street is every single parking spot has a wire ready for an electric charger. And we're gonna do the same for this here.
Okay, so I know that there are public charging stations at Town Hall, the municipal parking lot, and around in other places. I've seen them in other parking lots. So somebody's come up with some sort of, manufacturer, and they put the thing out there. And if your car fits it, great. If it doesn't, oh well. And I know because it's been on and off talked about in the news that some American manufacturer has gone to Tesla's charging units and their hardware so that they're because Tesla has the most charging stations up across the country apparently for their vehicles. So I think when we were asking about them being, how many of those spaces you'd actually have, the public ones and the residential ones would actually be ready to go, not just ready, but they'd actually have the charging units there so people could plug in. That's a real question. And we're very interested in that because I think we have a net zero in 2040 goal for Ashland, and that would go a long way towards helping it.
So who would pay for if I put a charging station outside, who would pay for the electricity for it?
I don't know how that works, Charlie, because I don't have an electric vehicle right now. I know some
Yeah,
places,
so
well, no, some places you have to pay, just like you have to pay to park and you stick your card in there. It used to be your dime or your quarter, and now you stick a card in there. So I'm assuming that they work on something like that. And I know that some of them are free because they were trying to get people to adopt the technology.
I know Tesla, if you give Tesla a parking space, I don't know about a project this small, but in the larger scale projects, they'll put 3 chargers in that the public can use. Well, I mean, we can look into that, but every unit inside the garage will be wired, so each person, we run a wire from each parking spot all the way up to that unit that belongs to that parking spot. So that if they have an electric car, they're paying for their electricity. But
Okay, that makes sense. That's fair.
Hey, Kathy, we have one more hand raise.
So,
George.
okay, hold on a second, Alvaro, if you would. So Charlie, I think it'd be nice if you looked into that and let us know what you find out.
okay,
Great, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Alvaro.
Yep, George, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
So the question was whether you're going to have a 120 drop or a 240 drop, and you've answered it. You're probably going to have a 120 drop. Every electric.
Excuse me.
Yep.
We do 240 drops for every parking spot.
Oh, okay. So every electric vehicle comes with all the necessary adapters to plug into whatever they need to. And as of last 3 months ago, Tesla has gotten together with Ford and Dodge to standardize their charging systems, and Hyundai and the Germans have gotten together to standardize. So in the next 3 years, there will probably be only 2 different variants of the charging system. My actual question when I asked this was, if you do have 35 spots, are you, will you, have you calculated the electrical load on the building and whether or not it is actually sustainable? Will the building have a backup power source? Will the solar panels charge a backup power source, or will you pull power from the grid?
So we'd be pulling power from the grid. The other problem we have with this building is with the roof style that the town is making us go with. It limits us to the number of solar panels we can use. On a flat roof building, we could fill the whole building up with solar panels. But because this has a hip roof or gable, you don't want to, the town doesn't want to see solar panels on the front of the building. So we're only gonna be able to put so many solar panels towards the back of the building, and that'll probably generate enough power for us to run the common areas and the elevator.
Have you considered putting a solar power awning over the parking spots?
No.
Because you can use the square footage on your parking lot and then use the solar panels as a dual purpose awning cover and also a power generation system.
So the problem we have with that is the fire department wants to be able to run the large scale fire trucks through the driveway. So it wouldn't really work to cover the whole parking lot like that.
When you made your fire plan, did you take into account that there'd be cars in the parking lot when there was a possible emergency?
Well, the building's fully sprinkled, so
I was just curious. I saw your fire plan, and I was just asking if that was taken into consideration.
So the fire, the guy that designed the fire system, they calculate all that out and take that in consideration on the size of the water pipes that run through the building to feed the sprinkler heads.
Charlie,
I think the question with
Anna's
with
talking about, Ron, excuse me. I think George is talking about canopies. In the Newton City Library, that parking lot and various other parking lots, public parking lots across the city of Newton have all been converted. The ones at the high school. Those, we have designed this with a 24-foot aisle width, which should not impede fire trucks. So it is possible for us to put canopies there. The question is, does it work for you? That's really the question.
They'll be too small. The cost to build a canopy to do the solar, there's not that much parking spots there.
Okay.
Every little bit adds up, doesn't it, Charlie? I mean, I'm looking at this, that I forget how
It
much.
does, but if I gotta spend $100,000 on a canopy to get $50 a month for electricity, it doesn't work out. Whereas if we had a flat roof on the whole building and we filled it, if you look at 12 Pond Street, we put 300 solar panels on the roof of that building. On this building here, we'll be lucky if we can get 50. We haven't had the engineer design it yet, but it's, we'll see what he comes up with for a design. We just installed 800 solar panels on all of our buildings. And believe me, if I could do more solar panels, I would, because it benefits the property. But to build a canopy just for solar panels would have to be a whole steel structure thing. It wouldn't be feasible to do. If you would allow me to put a flat roof on the building, I'll fill that whole building with solar panels.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the planning board isn't gonna let you do that, right?
Yeah, that's the problem.
That requires a special permit. We tried to avoid that
Yeah.
cost.
I was
Even
gonna
if
by special permit, but did you ever do a drawing that shows it? I'm just curious. Did you ever consider drawing a flat roof?
Even if we did a fake hip roof, we could fill that whole roof with solar panels, but because of zoning, it doesn't allow for it.
The downtown Ashland district set of regulations, it's an overlay district. When that was created, there was no thought given to the ability to flat roofs. Clearly, they discourage, if you look at the design regulations, they discourage flat roofs. They require a special permit for flat roofs, whereas on this property, this building we're doing by right. And
Okay,
so
so-
that tells you a lot about how they felt about flat roofs.
That's because I think they weren't thinking about solar at the time.
Exactly. That's
Okay,
exactly right, Kathy.
So Terry, going back to what Kevin just said about the fake hip roof, because I know you did that, somebody did that down there. Maybe that's 128 Main.
Well, we did it on Pond Street as well.
Okay, so how much would that change the building? Sorry, Ron, if you put flat hip roofs up here? And would that give you enough to add more solar panels to start making it worthwhile? Or more worthwhile? That's
Well,
what you
I
look,
could,
that's
we
what-
could, if that roof was flat, we could probably put 500 solar panels, maybe more on that building.
Kathy, Charlie's talking about a completely flat roof, a 3-story flat roof building. He's not talking about with dormers, gable ends, none of that.
Okay, well,
That's not in the stream of consciousness.
yeah, that's not gonna
project.
fly. That's why I was talking about the other item that Kevin suggested, which was doing something a little different where there's a,
I didn't say that.
oh.
You're talking about a mansard, Kathy. So the mansard would be essentially, it would be built as a 3-dimensional flat roof box, and then you add outriggers on the perimeter to create that mansard look.
You have one
Because-
of those fake mansard buildings already in the downtown.
Yeah.
It looks like crap. Excuse my
right across-
French.
Right across from Town Hall.
It does not look authentic, and I'm sure you would, if you looked at it, you'd agree. It doesn't look authentic New England.
No, it looks more like New York.
Exactly.
Okay, so I know I asked way back when at the outset of this project, solar shingles.
So the solar shingles they're not proven yet. They're not,
I heard Harvey Roofing Materials is selling them. So,
they might be selling them, but they don't work good.
Tesla doesn't offer them right now outside of their current existing projects.
And Tesla actually makes the worst solar panels out there. They catch on fire and there's all kinds of problems with them.
suggesting that-
Tesla doesn't make solar panels. They buy it from LG, Panasonic. I work for Tesla. I'm one of their engineers. So,
Yeah,
I mean, they make the roofs, and the shingles don't catch on fire. They're hail and weatherproof,
Yeah.
So I know firsthand.
okay. I believe me, if they stop making them so they work, I'll use them all over the place. I don't care. All my buildings have solar. I'm all about solar. All our buildings are very the highest energy rating that they can be. We spray foam all our buildings. We go above and beyond to get the highest ratings from the HERS rating company we have that comes out and puts below a door tests on our building and checks our windows and all that stuff.
Charlie, be careful. They're going to be after you to do passive house, which is the maximum standard.
Yeah,
Big article today about the passive house 800 unit complex in Newton Upper Falls. In the
Well,
Globe.
that starts a good conversation, Terry, because the new stretch code requires essentially passive house standard.
Yeah.
We have to be thinking about this. It's base code in Ashland because they've adopted the stretch code.
So I'm gonna urge you guys to think about the shingles again. The solar shingles, see if you can ask around, see if you might get a deal from somebody to put them on there to see if they work properly.
we can put solar panels on the back of the roof because no one's gonna see it from the street. But that's about it. I know you don't want to see them on the front of the building. Or maybe we should put them on the front of the building so it encourages the rest of the town to put solar on their roofs.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you think they can't go on the front of the building. Did someone tell you that?
I thought, Terry, were we told that
Yeah.
they didn't want to see the solar panels from the
You
street?
see, Kathy, you can't seriously think the planning board would approve solar panels on the face of of the building, on the roof side of the building that faces the street. I mean, that's the single biggest pushback to putting solar panels on old houses, is what they look like from the street. Some people don't care, but most people do.
Well, isn't this facing north anyway?
It is.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
they
still
do,
get the
right.
morning sun.
Mhm.
They face north. You're right, Kevin, they do.
What is the pitch on that high roof? Is it like a 4 and 12?
On what, the gable or the sheds?
Well, the roof that would potentially have solar panels, this roof here. What's the,
Yeah, it's got a 412 pitch on the
Mhm.
sheds.
If you give me permission to put solar panels on, I'll do that whole building.
Well, I can't give you permission to put it on because we don't make your final decision, but I think I know that the Sustainability Committee is very interested in getting them up there, and I would urge you again, Charlie, to see if you can think about solar shingles. Because you know, see if somebody's, talk to them and say, look, I know these things don't work properly right now. Are they gonna be ready to go up on my building, and will they work properly? And, get a
So if
get
I
a-
know we were gonna get in deep into solar, that I have an engineer that works in MIT that designs all our solar. He builds cities in Dubai and he goes to India. He goes all over the world and builds cities that they drink rainwater and toilet water and, builds all these solar farms and stuff.
right,
So he's the one that designs all my buildings. And he actually, when we permitted Pond Street, he came to the meeting and spoke in front of the board for that one. When we go back in front of the planning board, I can have him come and speak on that board.
well, I'm just gonna, I just think you need to think about it, because I know that the Sustainability Committee is very interested in getting to net zero, and they've come and talked to us about it, and then I think, you should really think about it.
I'll look into it, but I
Right.
know in the past when I did, the roof shingles weren't reliable enough yet.
Well, when I saw that the Harvey had them for sale, it was well over a year ago. So I'm hoping to pass the smell test, if you will, and that they work properly. So that was an alternative to Tesla, because I knew Tesla had problems at the time.
I'll take a look at it.
That'd be great. Thank you. All
I
right,
would
Kevin,
crunch- I would
anything else?
crunch- I was just gonna say, I would crunch the numbers, Charlie, on the solar canopy too, just to put that option to bed.
Just so the problem with the solar canopy is the structural engineering of the thing would be so much, would have to be so strong to hold the snow loads and all that stuff. For that small space, it wouldn't be worth it in my mind, without I could tell just by looking at it, a rough idea how much it's gonna cost to build the structure for that thing, where the roof of the building's already built and designed for the snow load, so it's easier just to throw them on a roof. And I have no problem filling that whole building again with solar panels, if they allow us to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the solar canopies are becoming more typical in parking lots, and so they can be done with a snow load.
Yep.
They just, they might be expensive.
It's the cost of the structure. It ain't even the cost of the solar panels.
Right.
But we might be able to do the whole building except for just the Homer Ave front of the building. So I'll have my solar engineer take a look at this roof and design something.
Great. Thank you.
get passed on to the planning board.
I don't, whatever that was in the background, we couldn't hear it. So Charlie, you've got to turn off your mic when you're done, please. Do we have anybody else with a raised hand?
No, at this moment, we don't have anybody else.
Thank you. Anybody else on the committee with comments? Okay, I'm gonna do a last call. If we don't have any more comments, I think we're gonna close the hearing. Can I get a vote to that effect? A motion to that effect, excuse me, 10:30.
And motion to close the hearing for
9-49 Homer Ave.
9-47 Homer Ave.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all those in favor?
Ujjwala Paunakar, aye.
Kevin Modai.
Kathy Rooney, aye. Bill, you still here?
No, he isn't.
No.
Oh, he isn't. Okay. All right. So it's unanimous. All right. Thank you, everybody, very much.
Chair, what happens next? Do you make a recommendation to the board, or how does that work?
We're going to go through our report. I don't know how much of it will get done tonight. And we will fill in all the comments and the questions we have. And then we're going to send it off to the planning board.
Okay.
So we've been having a lot of meetings. We actually just sent a letter. Our committee just sent a letter to the planning board asking about my brain is fried right now. Getting some environmental impact statements from this site for the site and for the building because of the proximity of the railroad, the Richardson building, and the gas station across the street. So we're a little concerned about how all this is going to work. The construction part is going to work down here.
I thought that these projects require a construction management plan, which is pretty typical for all such development.
Yes, that's good.
Typically, it covers things like dust control, pest, rodent control, you know, cleaning, keeping the streets clean, deliveries, staging of materials. All of that's contained in a construction management plan.
Right. Well, you're within 100 feet of a railroad here, so I think there might be some additional things you have to do. I don't know much about it, but somebody brought it to our attention at the last meeting, and so.
Who is it? The planning board that oversees that kind of thing?
Well, we wrote the letter to the planning board because we're a subcommittee of them. And so I'm assuming that the planning board has something to do with it, the building inspector. And I don't know who else, Terry, honestly.
An environmental impact report. What is that? What is the report supposed to assess? The impact of development upon.
It's about the vibrations of all of what you're going to be doing in the ground. And the vibration of the land 100 feet from the railroad station is extremely settled because of the vibration. And so you're going to be opening it back up, and what's that going to do?
City of Newton is about to adopt a vibration monitoring control system ordinance, which arose as a result of them putting a standard condition in every special permit, regardless of the situation, requiring surveys beyond a certain, you know, distance. Then they basically ran afoul of that because it was the way they had applied it. It would have meant to every demo permit, every time somebody digs a hole. So they've established a system whereby a licensed vibration control person has to present a report to the permit granting authority saying if a survey is required or it's not required, and if it's required for whatever distance is required from the site.
the most current information I have about how those things work.
Who manages that? What department manages that in Newton?
Well, the first thing is the city council, the special permit granting authority, and so the planning, and they have an extensive planning staff, believe me, more than 20 people. So they fashion these amendments, which they did for this particular case. And they presented it to the land use committee. It's now going to be presented to the zoning and planning committee, and eventually I expect it'll be adopted by sometime in September. Who monitors it? It's essentially when a special permit is filed and the plans are submitted, one of the things they review when they go through the process of zoning, design review, site plan, and at the end, when they are putting together the council order, they then deal with things like, well, is there ledge on the site? If that means it could be blasting, and
Exactly.
that they assess it based upon what information comes out as a result of the presentation and the questions that are asked and answered during the public hearing process. So in essence, the city council monitors up to a certain point and makes a determination as to whether this is required or not. And then it's monitored by both the planning department, who has to sign off on any building permit before it goes to inspectional services. That's how it works.
Okay, so it's a planning department, not a land use department.
But yeah, because the planning department are paid staff, city councilors are paid, but they're part-time elected.
Right.
Like the select persons.
Okay. Okay, well, that sounds pretty interesting. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so I think we're set with you guys tonight, and thank you so much to each and every one of you for all your hard work on this so far and your presentation to date. And we'll as soon as we can get the report filed, it'll get to you.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate the time you've taken to get this far.
Likewise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sleep well.
Yes, you too. Okay, so it's 20 to 11. Do you want to try to work on the report now? Or do you want to try to hold another meeting next week and work on it? What do you think, committee?
I think we're not going to finish it tonight, so maybe we should look at it fresh. I took extensive notes on what we might add to the report. We just have to compile it and agree on each item that we're putting in. I think we need to hold another meeting to do that.
Okay, great. And I've got, I think, enough notes to do minutes. But we might be looking at those also next time.
Do you guys know what day will you guys be meeting? Because next Thursday there is planning board meeting, so they will be using the Zoom link. So I can, if you guys give me a heads up, I can try to look for another Zoom link that it could be used or another date.
I would like to try it for Tuesday. I think it would be great to get the report to the planning board before they meet. They're meeting about this project on Thursday?
Yeah, they have it on their agenda for next Thursday.
Yep. I would propose Tuesday. I could also do Monday if we want to do it sooner than later.
For Monday, I don't think it will be feasible because we would have sent the agenda today.
Right.
Yeah. So Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, so Tuesday would be the earliest, which means I have to get out an agenda first thing tomorrow morning, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Ujwala, can you do that, which would be the 8th?
Yes.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is do that. And we will do the rest of the minutes. I think then, unless we want to go through.
I could put an agenda, Kathy, and send it to you like first thing in the morning following the agenda you had today. and just kind of changing the public hearing rather to say discussion of public hearing 949. And if you think it's fine, then we can get it posted as soon as tomorrow morning.
Okay, why don't you do that? And we definitely have minutes to come up there first. That'd be great. Thank you, Alvaro.
Yep.
Be helpful. And just be sure to send back the doc. So we can just send it to the entire committee, so that way whoever's taking notes I just basically take it into the agenda and then I change it.
Okay.
Easier than trying to cut and paste from PDF back into Word and it never formats properly.
And also just for a time frame kind of question, do you guys think that the next meeting that this team will be meeting with you, would it be trying to look at the materiality, or would it be more of a Zoom meeting just looking at renderings and plans?
There definitely we want to look at materialities, right, Kevin?
Yeah, but I think we need to look at the renderings first. So I was actually going to suggest to see the renderings and the options that we talked about them presenting. And then at that meeting, we would request that they put a box of physical samples together for us to review. And they either deliver that to town hall and we can review it there, or we have a meeting with them and they can present them to us. But I think, Kathy, you and I talked about this. I think we should have possibly an in-person meeting with the applicant to hold some samples in our hands.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's not the next meeting with them, but the one after.
Right. It's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't think it can be the next one.
Okay.
No. Are we with
We're not far enough along yet. We're getting farther, but we're not far enough along yet.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, are we within the time frame within the 60 days? How does that work again? Should we be working with that?
I don't think so, because they have sent the extensions, like Terry has been very promptly in sending the extensions needed. So I think that we are good until the end of August, if my memory is not
You think we have to finalize our reports and be done discussing the project by the end of August?
I'll double check tomorrow, Kevin. I'm not sure if it's by the end of August because I wasn't here when the hearing started.
Yep.
Itself, but I'll double check and let you guys know.
Okay.
And I think my comment about that in part, Alvaro, is we didn't start seeing this project soon enough. Which I know that Terry was asking when we did the walkthrough way back when. And we should have been seeing this way back when.
They're probably going to need time to do this. If they get you a continuation request tomorrow, I'm not entirely sure how it works, but I would imagine they would want to continue to August 24th at the earliest.
Yeah, because if they're meeting next week with the planning board, they definitely have a continuance on. So I definitely think it's
probably
by the
gonna
end of
push it
August.
out. It's probably gonna get pushed farther out, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so, because probably like next Thursday they will just be able to do so much, like from this meeting. So probably they will be presenting the same set of information.
Okay.
My only suggestion, when they do the rendering and the cropping, just make sure the first floor of the building lines up with the first floor of the other buildings, because it seems like they reduced the size of the building by 25%. When I asked him to point that out, the first floors weren't even with each other. I'm just bringing this up as the scale of the actual building they will put up. It looks smaller than it actually is because it wasn't equal to the surrounding buildings.
Yep, the point is well taken, and we've asked for that previously. We always request things to be in scale and to be accurate. It's just a matter of, we can't actually do the work, but we can do our due diligence in trying to confirm that it's accurate. But we'll keep pushing for that.
Yeah, I don't know. This is my first time listening to what they had to say, and I do agree with Mark about security and lighting and having an open entrance. I just didn't want to reiterate that point because the second floor has access to apartments and it's ground level and it's not open to public eyes. So someone could go up those stairs if it's not secure and then enter an apartment and rob somebody. And I totally agreed with Mark on that point where it seems that that is an afterthought. If someone's hanging out outside of a patio and you're trying to sleep, like, does the noise ordinance kick in where you're like, oh, someone's having a party in the patio? Or what if they don't live there? It's just, I understood what Mark was saying, and I do agree with him that security and curfews need to be held in a high standard, especially when your front door is outside a theoretical park.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, that's gonna be something I think the building management has to manage in terms of tenants having parties up there. That's not really something we can control, but the second floor entrance, I think, is that access from the street to that second floor area that should be secure. That's a little weird, actually. Anything else, anybody?
So we're gonna look at minutes on Tuesday. That's what's being added to the agenda?
Yes. Yeah. We don't have enough time right now. I think there's a couple. I sent something along and there's a couple, but
I think we need more members of the committee to do that. We should approve the 6:15 minutes, but we should do that when more people that were at the meeting are here.
yeah, that would be nice. Okay, so I'm gonna entertain a motion to adjourn if anybody's interested in making it.
Seconded.
Making the motion?
Who's making
Oh,
the
no.
motion? Joel, you're gonna make the motion? Kevin?
Yeah, I make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
Great. All those in favor?
Ujjwala Paunapar.
Kevin Modai.
And Kathy Rooney, aye. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.
Comments.
Good
and
night.
Helping
Yeah.
with the meeting. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.